The recording has started for the Zoom meeting as well because it's a joint meeting. Welcome everybody. It is now 1 month past start time, so let's get going. A warm welcome to you all. Can I first ask that cell phones, everybody checks that their cell phones are on silent. Health and safety. We know the exits are here. Where else have we got exits? There and there. And there's another one down the stairs that way, presumably. No? Yeah, that's an emergency one. So that's that. If there's
things get crunchy and there's those doors over there.
we can, and we just jump. We jump.
Like amendment, swallow the chair.
Yeah. So there's public toilets out in the foyer. If there's an earthquake, it's drop, cover and hold, so under our desks. And if there's a fire, we exit. Now, for recognising COVID-19, we keep our spacing, and I think that's all we have to say on health and safety. Can I call for apologies, please? I have Chairman Leader and Councillor Brunning is going to retire at about 11:30, I believe. Are there any other apologies?
Second.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thurston. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Public forum. We have two speakers in the public forum this morning. There will be Max Lewis will have 5 minutes, and then we have Councillor Heidi Hughes is going to present a petition recognising that the petition will be at points of clarification only at this stage. We can and will refer them to the next public transport meeting, but staff can work on them, so feel assured that they won't be forgotten. Max Lewis, are you available?
Okay, you need to unmute yourself.
He is there.
I'll just ask you to unmute.
Maybe close down the cell.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now hear you. Can we just volume up a bit?
Yes, I'll try my volume. My volume is on maximum here, so.
Yes, that's good. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to being able to speak to the committee. The Transit Group's goal is to provide the best possible public transport service for Tauranga, and I'm sure that we are all unanimous in that goal. But one of the things I'd like to start with is to define the term public. To me, in the common use of the term, it means relating to all the people in the community, and or services provided for everyone. And if we think of public in the terms of schools, libraries, hospitals, etc., then they're all accessible to everybody. But when we come to the term of public transport, then there are thousands of citizens in Tauranga who don't have access under the public transport system as it's mooted under the blueprint strategy that we have at the moment. The blueprint, I'd like to refer to some of the research that we've done. You may recall that there was a public transport stakeholders focus group that was set up and has been going for over a year, and there were 13 groups involved in working with the policy manager at the time, Gary Maloney, to get input into the public transport blueprint document when it was still in its in its development phase. there were many submissions made to that committee regarding the lack of public transport access for people that are physically disabled or the elderly. And there were many submissions that were made, and your committee may recall a very good PowerPoint presentation by Carol Gordon on the subject of senior citizens in public transport. That committee met for quite a while, and I tried to get the copy of the minutes of the last meeting of the committee, of the focus group committee for the 2018 year, but I couldn't get that document. But at the last meeting of that, the chairman, Mr. Maloney, told us that all of the submissions that we'd made for seniors and disabled people, none of them would be adopted to go into the blueprint transport strategy. And I don't believe that information was conveyed to your committee. So the ability for the elderly and the disabled to be represented is not present at the present time. The blueprint strategy, in our view, is not fit for purpose because and we've seen this since it has been introduced. The patronage level has been well down, as you know, and the vacant seat capacity on public transport. And so I did some research to find the level of seat vacancies per day on our public transport. And while you may have the information, I'd like to run through a few of them for you. For the month of January 2019, there were every day of the week, working day of the week, for the month of January 2019, there were 46,000 vacant seats on our buses. In February 2019, there were 45,000 vacant seats every day on our buses. And for March 2019, there were 45,000 vacant seats. And we've all noticed the yellow buses going around virtually empty all the time. My concern is that the blueprint strategy is the document that is used for both the UFTI study that was done by Smart Growth and also for Tauranga City Council's Tupapa indicated business case. And in both of those, there is no provision for disabled people to use the service. And what I would like the council, what I'd like this committee to do is to review the suitability of the blueprint strategy for public transport. Because and I'd like the committee to either clarify that it is fit for purpose or that it isn't, because this is the document that is going to go ahead under Tauranga City Council's TPI BC program, and if it isn't fit for purpose, then it shouldn't, and we shouldn't continue with it.
1 minute, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That in a nutshell is what I want to convey to the committee and ask the committee to clarify the validity of the blueprint, the transport blueprint document that the committee voted on. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Lewis. I can give you an assurance from myself that I will ensure that staff come back to you and to the committee with a response to your question.
Ask a question.
Yep. Just clarification.
Clarification. So I can't ask a question. Just clarification.
Yeah, it's a forum, but
Sure. Hi, Max. Thanks for your presentation. I'm just wondering if you've heard of on-demand transport, where buses, small buses come that are mobility, and they can come right to your door and then pick you up and take you to different locations. Have you heard of that kind of service?
Yes, I have. One of the things that we are doing on the 8th of next month, we're attending the New Zealand NZTA future transport policy meeting, because we're involved, as you know, our group see that we should have a modal shift into transport away from the, and because that includes everybody. But I put submissions to this council on a modal shift, and we still have a request for funding application before the committee that we are going to put in the March next year annual plan. So yes, I do know of that proposal, and we are working with NZTA on future transport modes. But I want to say, I would like the council to confirm that the blueprint strategy either is fit for purpose or is not, because the other view, of course, is that it doesn't meet the GPS standards.
Okay, I've Councillor Neave, then Councillor Thurston.
Thank you, Max. Good to see you. Just a question. Do you understand that the 400 metres distance walk from a high percentage of our public transport users to a bus stop is the level of service that's in our public transport plan, and it sits behind our planning, and that for those people that are disabled, we do have the total mobility service, which is a door-to-door subsidised service, utilising other forms of mass public transport, i.e. taxis.
Yes, I'm fully aware of the mobility service that the council runs. The concern that we have is for people who are still mobile but can't walk 400 metres to a bus stop. I gave you an article about this feature on shortness of breath on exertion, which is a very common occurrence in communities. And if you read the article that I sent out prior to this meeting, that I've spoken. In fact, personally, I've been suffering from SOBOE myself because of my a medical condition, which fortunately I'm now overcoming. But there is no way I would be able to walk 400 metres to catch a bus. And then when I got off at the other end, there would be no way I'd be able to get to my destination, because I simply don't have the physical energy. And this is why, and these are the people, and if you look at the figures that are there, there could be as many as 20,000 citizens in Tauranga who would suffer from SOBOE in our city, and they people need to be taken into consideration in our public transport.
Thank you. Now, we're having Councillor Thurston, then Mayor Webber, and then we'll close it down because we've got a tight schedule to keep up with our Zoom stuff as well. So we have to keep the schedule. Councillor Thurston.
Max, thanks for your presentation. It was most informative. As you know, I've had a lifetime of dealing with a profoundly disabled son, so I know everything about the disability sector, both nationally and internationally. So, but in terms of you not being able to walk 400 metres without considerable difficulty, you are clearly eligible for a total mobility scheme card. Do you have one?
No, I don't have one. The condition for me, fortunately, is temporary, and I'm sort of recovering from that now. But there are thousands of people in our city who can't use this, and of course, the difficulty for other people that have wheelchairs, etc., we still are not adequately catered for under the blueprint strategy.
Well, I'll be brief, but if your condition impacts on your daily life for longer than 6 months, then you're entitled to this card. But if it's inside 6 months, of course, you just got to grin and bear it, sadly. But coming up today, the issue of free bus travel for disabled people is going to be discussed as part of the annual plan and the long-term plan. I don't know if you're aware, it was unrolled last year in the Waikato by the Waikato Regional Council. The cost was not prohibitive, but it's been a phenomenal success in the Waikato. So pray God we roll it out here sooner rather than later, and you live to see it coming out. So Thanks for your presentation, and I know we'll see you again next.
You certainly will, yes.
Mayor Webber.
Thanks, Max. Just referring to the document you gave us, one of the lower bullet points is if the 27% incidence of citizens suffering from SOBOE is approximately correct, then you go on to say 35,000.
Yes.
Have
Well,
you seen the two, if you let me finish, thank you. Have you seen the 2014-16 studies, which are internationally conducted, which show that those statistics generally refer to those over 40-year-old, or the more current one, which is between 71 and 102 years, your numbers change significantly when you read the data correctly. So have you seen those documents?
I haven't seen those, Councillor, but I do know that if we need to do a survey in Tauranga, then I know that the medical profession would be happy to canvass their members to get a, if you like, a back of an envelope impression of how many people in Tauranga actually suffer from SOBOE.
Thank you, Max, for your presentation. It will be taken on board your thoughts, and I'm sure staff will give you a response. Can I now call on Heidi Hughes to present the petitions?
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Max. Hi, everyone. I've been asked by two groups to present petitions today. One group presented to Tauranga City Council a couple of months ago at our Urban Form and Transport Committee meeting, and the other group invited me out to meet their community to talk about their bus issues out there, and asked me if I would present them today. So I'll start with the Waiariki Ave Emerald Shores group. These guys live right down the end of Papamoa. So there's about 120 odd signatures. Oh no, this one's got about 90 signatures on it. So here's what they have to say. Until 2015, the bus servicing Papamoa East was run down Papamoa Beach Road. Apparently prior to moving the bus route to Waiariki Emerald Shores, there's been a survey from council and the vast majority of residents was against, and therefore a bus route was not moved. One person on Waiariki went around for signatures to get a bus on Waiariki Ave. The motivation was less walking distance to Papamoa Beach Road. Council went ahead and moved the bus without further investigation. Immediately after this happened, residents opposed this and presented a case to the BOP Public Transport Committee. The arguments against were noise, vibration, road safety, road damage, speed. Unfortunately, there was no interest from council to listen and the case was wiped off the table. We have tried to live with buses since then. Current situation. Recently, the bus schedules have changed and there are significantly more buses using Waiariki and Emerald Shores despite the existing problems. We now have 2 bus routes and occasionally 4 bus routes, but are getting a lot of not in service buses also that are passing by and turning down the roundabouts. Now, I went out there to visit these guys. They have about 10 buses went past while I was there. It's quite a backwater residential street. And then on the corner, there were 3 buses parked out on yellow lines that are just parking there idling because that's the end of their line. So they sit there and they idle. It's actually illegal to park there anyway. It's the yellow lines. These guys are kind of at their wits' end. It was kind of, they're pretty, they get their houses vibrate because these buses are huge and they turn around their corners and there's about 10 of them an hour. And because I think one of the biggest problems too is that they're all empty. So they're watching this crazy charade of empty yellow massive buses go past their doorsteps constantly. So I think we're sort of, for this neighbourhood, running out of social licence with our bus service right now, and I think it's really worth having some real engagement with these guys and seeing what it is that's going to make them. They don't have a problem with buses in general. They love the school buses, but they've said the kids are feeling really unsafe outside their doors. They used to ride around on scooters and now they don't. So it's at some point we need to engage with these people or they're going to throw their toys out of the cot and just say no buses, please, we're over it. That's just my little perspective there. So they said the benefits are it might reduce the walking distance slightly for an extremely...
Just keep it moving.
Okay, all right. I'll leave this one then with you guys. So that one's just to present. The second one is the Links Ave mums, really. And they presented to our council. They had 120 signatures, and they said, Heidi, we could get 500 signatures if you want them. We just did this in the morning to present with our case. So Links Ave now has 30 buses an hour running down it. Since we put in the bus lane, there's no room on there's no buffer between the sides of the road. So there's 3 lanes on that street now during peak period. So the kids are all off onto the sides of the road. There's mums, there's kids, there's bikes, there's everything on there. And they are really, really concerned for the safety of their children. So here is their petition. They said, so this has changed also in the last few weeks. They said the same thing, the buses are mostly empty. There's out of service buses running down there all the time. And I know that part of the out of service bus thing was to test the B card service, but they still seem to be running around there quite a lot. So they've said, sorry, I know you try your best. I'm worried that someone will be hurt. Winter is not so bad. Summer is we have a lot more bad days. I know you want to improve the bigger picture and make it better for more people, and I think that is right. But while we wait and hope that someone might get killed, having a child already under a bus that has happened a lot faster than I thought, the hour before and after school is so dangerous that every day it's different. We have good and very bad and in between days. Links Ave is the only route for our children. It feeds 3 schools, yet it was chosen to put in a bus route and lane in. I've been trapped by a bus using the road to allow children to stay on the path, and I saw 2 children in 1 week in the same position. Nothing I would want to repeat or see a child in. They managed to get out okay. I don't want to see this on my way to school. Below is Sarah's statement where the child cycled. So where the child cycled, so this was a child that ran off their bike and under a bus while the bus was parked, and they dragged the child out. It was 3 weeks ago, and they were told by the bus company that there'd be an investigation, and the parent has not been contacted yet. So again, social license to operate down this street is coming to an end for these people. And now, instead of appreciating a bus system, they're against a bus system in general. So we've got some work to do around engagement. So I'll leave these 2 petitions with you both, with the team, and hope that some engagement can come out of this.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. It is not open for discussion. The points of clarification, only a petition will go to staff for a response in the first initial, and we will bring it to the next council PT meeting. Any points of clarification? There being none, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Heidi. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification, if I may.
Yep.
If in terms of these matters going to staff, and surely staff are not going to have to wait to come back to the next meeting of PT to actually get on and do whatever is necessary. I'm just presuming that is, taken as read.
Absolutely agree with you. The interval between meetings is greater than it's been. The last time I chaired PT, we used to have them every 2 months. It's now 3 months, and it is a long time. So I expect staff to come back, and even if we do an email circulation to the members of this committee, so that we can progress things in between meetings if necessary. So you have my assurance on that.
Sorry. It's not clarification, but surely when you have an event like the ladies talked about, staff don't actually wait for us to instruct them. They should go out and investigate this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, items not on the agenda, there aren't any. Order of business, there's no changes to the order that's been presented. Declarations and conflicts of interest, are there any? There being none, we move on. Item 7, the minutes of the previous meeting.
Happy to move, Mr Chair.
Moved by councillor Rowe, seconded by councillor Thurston. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Are there any matters arising? There being none, we move straight on to the chairman's report. Can I, before I hand over to chairs, can I just inform this committee that Bay Plenty Regional, oh sorry, have I gone ahead? I have. Oh. So the order of the thing has changed. Yeah, sorry, I missed out. Rotorua mode shift framework, sorry about that, Rotorua, and we've got
Jody, we've got Simon, Annette, and we've got Joe Mitchell.
there. Yeah, you want to go back to an item in the minutes? I did rush through that, so absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 13, at the last meeting, we received the annual plan report and we discussed topics for public transport, and there were a number of topics there. As you know, I've raised it as part of the presentation from Max Lewis, but I really am desperately keen to progress the issue of free bus services in the Bay of Plenty region for people with disabilities. Now, we collectively agreed to include free travel for people with disabilities at the last LTP meeting that we had. And I know that staff are costing it up for further consideration at the next LTP workshop. But my concern is that I would like some assurance that we're going to roll this out sooner rather than later, and it's not part of the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan. You know, it was rolled out pretty quickly across the hill in the Waikato, and the estimated cost is only $151,000 for the first year. So what I'm asking is essentially, is there some way we can move this forward and put it at the top of the pecking order for matters in the annual plan rather than the long-term plan?
Staff response?
So, please, Chairman, so we can look at that at the LTP workshop about making a change in 2021 as well as for the long-term plan, so options for council to consider there.
It has such a huge impact on the lives of disabled people in this community and across the Bay of Plenty. You know, 1 in 5 identify with a profound disability. We heard one today from one of the presenters, but hopefully his dissipates in 6 months. But no, if you can just progress that, I think it's a wonderful initiative.
Thank you, Mayor Weber.
Thank you. Whilst I accept the cause is well intentioned and I fully support. However, in staff reporting back to the LTP, as we've just heard about, make sure the facilities to get on the bus is costed in. The places where the buses can pull off the road is costed in. Because just saying we've got a bus with a sign up the front is not the solution. It's all the infrastructure that needs to go with it, and I'll cover this on later. It seems to be a gaping hole. You know, we can do the simple bit, which is we'll put a bus on, but the infrastructure, and I'll cover it later on. To me, we've got to do the full financial study, not just the easy bit.
Just my comment to that, remembering that our buses do have capacity to lower, and that they do have ramps for.
Understand that,
Yeah.
I've seen them operate in the country.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to the Rotorua mode shift framework.
So through the chair, perhaps I'll introduce the staff we have here today to present and hand over to Joe, who will likely lead into that as well. We have Jody Lawson from Rotorua Lakes Council, who's going to be covering urban cycling work. We've got Simon Barnett from Waka Kotahi, who's specifically going to be talking about State Highway 30 and Tenai Road and multimodal opportunities, followed by Joe, who's going to be talking about the Rotorua PT network review. So I'll hand over to the team, who are all on Zoom.
Thank you, Namuda. Thank you, Chair. Jody Lawson is experiencing a bit of technical difficulties, so I'm going to lead off with her presentation around the Rotorua cycle network. So I'll just bring up my share screen now. So really just a bit of an overview of why we're presenting today. Basically, it's an opportunity for the work that's been done in Rotorua around multimodal transport to be presented to the committee. So we'll be covering off the urban cycleways, some of the progress that's being made to date with the Rotorua Public Transport Review, and Simon will be talking about the My Road corridor investment from NZTA.
Joe, just a second, Councillor Nees, you've got...
Yes, I had this, well, I thought this was being covered this afternoon in the workshop, the Rotorua Public Transport Network Review. We've got a paper there. So are we supposed to be looking at that paper now, or is this presentation out of sync?
Through you, Chair, this is just a very brief overview and we'll cover off the PT review in much more depth later on through the workshop. This is just a very once over lightly in terms of the PT review, but also covers those other multimodal aspects as well. So in terms of the urban cycleways, this is just a brief update to let you know what's been happening in that space over the last few years in Rotorua. As we know, it's a very cycle-dominated tourism town and there's been some really impressive growth over the last little while. So since 2015, 30 kilometres of shared path have been delivered within Rotorua. Part of that was through the Cycleways project, which was the government urban cycleways funded projects. So they're working towards a fully connected network which can support a lot more transport by actives, so cycling and walking and micro-mobility. So since 2016, they've seen really impressive growth, 81% increase in commuter bikes, averaging just 300 people per day in and out of the CBD. At the moment, they've got an annual count that counts at 12 different sites around the city, and that again is reflecting that big increase in 81% of users using wheeled transport, so that will include kids on scooters as well. Some really interesting statistics are coming out from the count data in Rotorua, very heavily weighted towards male users and hugely weighted towards shared and footpath use. Only 10% of those counts were taken on road. So that means that despite having quite a number of on-road paths for users, that's not where the growth is happening. That's not where people want to be cycling. There's a large preference for shared paths, footpaths, and basically being able to be protected from traffic. One of the key elements that will be rolling out across the next LTP and annual plan period is around upgrading of footpaths, so that as all footpaths in the city are renewed, they'll be extended to 3 metres wide. So that'll effectively mean that as a footpath is replaced or renewed, it'll automatically become a 3 metre wide share path. So you'll start to have a much more extensive network of paths that are suitable for cyclists, scooters, and micro-mobility transport as well. Here's just an example of that. That's Pukuatua Street shared path, which is a new 3 metre shared path. Just a brief overview, as you can see, this is a map of Rotorua, demonstrating with those orange lines where shared paths and other cycling infrastructure has been installed. And so you can see from this why they're getting that upgrade in cycling is simply because they have such an extensive network of these paths to support active mode travel. So the investment is clearly leading through to big uptake and mode shift towards more sustainable transport. One of the key things that they wish to progress in the near future is around secure parking in the CBD, because that's been seen as a really limiting factor. Many people want to walk, to cycle to the CBD, but there's just simply nowhere safe to secure their bikes. Particularly now with a lot more electric bikes coming online, they're a lot more expensive and people take a lot more care with them. So that's one of the key barriers you'll be looking to remove in the coming years. Just a quick once over the public transport review. We'll be covering again, as I said, this later on in the workshop. But just for the public session, just to give them an overview of what we're doing. Essentially, the public transport review is looking to deliver a 10-year framework for delivering public transport improvements in Rotorua. Part of that will be a a package of short-term works to be delivered in the next year or so, next 3 years, as well as that 10-year action plan for delivering further improvements into that network. There's a lot of alignment between the different projects happening at the moment within public transport. So obviously there's a draft mode shift plan, a regional public transport plan, Rotorua's spatial plan, and structured planning processes underway. Plenty of government direction in terms of how we should be delivering public transport and the objectives we're trying to achieve with that. And also it relates into the Tenai Road upgrades that have been planned by NZTA, as these will have a very heavy focus on multimodal transport. Big whys for the undertaking the review. Largely it's around that declining patronage, 43% drop between 2015 and 2019. It's not what we want to be achieving with a public transport network, and it's certainly not the direction of travel we want. It's about supporting new growth areas as those come online and making sure we have a plan in place that will allow us to support those through sustainable transport modes. Responding to customer requests, lowering our carbon footprint, and also responding to potential outcomes from COVID-19 in terms of changing employment and education requirements. Just for context, East Side is the next major development area for Rotorua. It's looking at 3,000 to 4,000 houses along Tenai Road. So that's the state highway leading out between Rotorua CBD and the airport towards Tauranga and to Whakatane. That's the main corridor that NZTA has been working on over the coming years. And Simon's going to talk a lot more about what's planned for that corridor in the short term and also longer term in terms of multimodal response as well as traffic capacity. So I'll hand over to Simon now to give us a brief update on that.
Thank you, Joe. Kia ora everyone, Mr. Chairman. My name is Simon Barnett. I work for Waka Kotahi. I have a presentation that I'd like to put before you. Just do share screen. I'm going to talk to the slides rather than read out what's on them, and then I'll welcome your feedback. So, can everybody see my screen okay? The presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I say, New Zealand Transport Agency, we've been looking at a project that effectively runs from Isles Street in towards the centre of town out to the airport. This piece of work is part of a wider programme of work that was started some years ago under the name of Connect Rotorua. Okay, just bear with me. I'm trying to. The project's called Stage 2. Why are we doing this? There's a significant amount of growth programmed on the east side for Rotorua, particularly the Wharenui development. There's a keen focus on there in terms of other agencies, Kāinga Ora, and some Crown funding that may be supporting that. So we're suddenly accelerating or look to accelerate the amount of development that goes on in that area, up to 1,000 plus houses in the short to medium term. What we're finding is that we really need to have some better connections from the local roads to the state highways. There's a need to improve the safety for all modes, and I'm particularly thinking about sustainable transport. There isn't a focus here on single occupancy vehicles. A need to improve the journey times and looking at increasing the amount of people that have the opportunity or can have the opportunity to walk and cycle around, as well as use a reliable public transport system. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to focus on the immediate needs now and plan for the future. Those immediate needs are shortfalls in infrastructure that supports walking, cycling and sustainable transport by the way of bus patronage. And we need to do that in a way that has a minimal disruption to the communities and the people that live on and are served by that journey. So what are we proposing? So in terms of public transport, well, we have a bus route down there. It's seen as a primary route. We've been working very closely with Joe, and we've established that there's a significant number of improvements to infrastructure that need to go ahead by the way of making sure bus stops, bus shelters are in the right place. Bus shelters are there. What we do now, we need to make sure that we future-proof for infrastructure such as real-time journey information. We want to make sure that what we do is connected to the local roads and the local communities and not just done in isolation. So to that end, it's an integrated response. And where we have, for instance, bus stops, we need to make sure that those spaces are able to be shared by walking, cycling, kids on scooters, as well as those that need to get on and off a bus. So there are some poor examples around the world, you know, where you're sort of getting off a bus into a cycle lane. So we want to think really carefully in the next phase in the terms of the detailed design about how everybody is going to integrate at those pinch points and effectively respect each other, and everyone has an equitable opportunity. To complement obviously PT, that we've got the walking and cycling. There's proposals putting the new 3-meter wide shared footpaths off-road. So that enables people to get to a bus stop, whether you might want to cycle there or scooter there or what have you. Clearly those are shared with walkers and those with disabilities, wheelchairs and so on. We've also got opportunity to have separate on-road cycleways for those that have the confidence. And more importantly, a significant number of intersections on that journey that then become signalised. The reason is because of the severance the state highway currently has, Tinar Road. So we have to cross the road, we have to get along it, and we have to access the facilities. Or if you live on it, you have to get along it into the side roads. All of this in the backdrop of future-proofing. So where does the future lie for us? Is it specific PT lanes, public transport lanes? Is it specific freight lanes? So what are we? Well, we're very thankful and blessed with some funding from the Crown. That's initially targeted at supporting development. Development is targeted at the Wharenui. So our initial stage, if you like, is really focused on Isles Road to Wharenui. So we've got the signals are indicated here, we've got the shared paths, we've got mid-block crossings by the parks and so on, so that all the sports facilities, so that people can access them. Can't do it all at once. So we've got some staging. So as I say, the first stage is really targeting that $35 million of Crown funds. The future stages, well, timeframes are less certain and they're more developer-led, and they would look at the progressing out towards the airport. So as traffic volumes drop off, as they naturally do as we leave town, it's less of a priority. So focusing on the biggest gaps first and the biggest priorities, and then onto the future, which becomes more and more uncertain. So as to look at what that future might look like, well, we're indicating that there would be an eventual need for 4-laning out to the airport. That would bring it back to my question. In the future, would that be a PT lane? Would it be a freight lane? What would that 4th lane be for? The theme and the consistency is there, and so we'd be expecting to work with yourselves as the regional and Rotorua Lakes Council over the years. What's the purpose of me here? Well, I thank you for the opportunity to present what we're proposing. We're in a stage where I'm looking to have the project and the first phase approved to go towards the design, and there on the construction. I'm keen to get support in principle for what we're doing, and I feel that with Joe's presentation and Jodie's earlier that there is definitely alignment in what we're doing and the work everyone else has got underway. I'm keen that the public transport strategy that you're about to embark on recognises the work and the intent to provide infrastructure for services. We're looking to just keep going with the commitment that we work together and we get the support from yourselves and your officers. For instance, if we need to relocate bus stops, that there is a community impact on that, whether it's big or small. It all depends on the person who's impacted, but we'd like to be seen to be standing shoulder to shoulder and understanding where our future plans are and that we can align with them, so that this is looking at providing some infrastructure that would support a better PT service. And again, that's reliant on the development and the people there to use it. So that's my presentation in a nutshell.
Is that the completion of all presentations?
Yep.
Thank you. So we'll open it up for questions. Can I just ask a first question though? Go back, stay on that one. You have a crossing there in the middle, not around lights. Is that designed to be an over bridge crossing, or are you expecting people to beat the traffic?
It's a signalised at-grade crossing, so it's a push button.
Thank you.
So it's at grade. So there's single lanes there. So the safety team is comfortable with that. I'm going to interrogate that further in the detailed design phase, but in principle, it's an at grade signalised crossing.
My last question. You're talking about putting in 3 metre wide cycle pedestrian ways, and then you're talking about having, as well as that, an on-road cycle lane. If you're spending the money putting the concrete in for a 3 metre wide, why are you having both options? It just seems an overkill.
It's the customers or the users that we're targeting. So there's some people that will stay on the road regardless. I'm not one of them, and it's to allow them a safe buffer with the traffic, so they will stay on road. I'm more than happy to encourage people that have the confidence to do that and to cycle into work, because it's not that far from town. The off-road cycleways and footpaths, the 3 metres is only on one side, and that's designed for people like myself or with children that might need to get down the road and then back into the local network or access the bus facilities, and it's 3 metres as basically because it accommodates all, whether you're in a wheelchair or able to jog down it.
Thank you, Councillor Nees.
Well, thank you, Simon. That's really exciting, seeing that sort of planning being done. But my question is this a Whakakotahi Crown infrastructure project, or is it a joint project with Rotorua Lakes funded by the Crown? I just need to understand how it fits in with our increasingly crowded transport planning space, particularly with respect to the regional land transport plan and those projects that would have to be prioritised and funded. I understand this is a separate funding bucket, but it's being presented to us as if Whakakotahi is providing all the infrastructure through this funding on a state highway, when we've got state highways also that run across Tauranga, and Tauranga City is responsible for responding to the infrastructure and the planning and that. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of understanding about why this looks so different from what's happening elsewhere.
The background, I can give you the background that leads us to the answer. So Connect Rotorua was a program of work that was initiated 2016. There were 3 projects that came out of that. This piece of work is the last one, and it's clearly got to focus Isles to the airport. It's currently funded through National Land Transport Funds as a business case in its own right. So playing a very, very straight bet, the agency has been responsible for delivering this business case, and it's looked at a staged approach to delivering that network. During lockdown, the opportunity was provided for some funds, and the funds came from a crown bucket. Those funds were targeted because of the need or the desire for the developments at Wharenui, and there was a need to make sure, or there was an opportunity, I guess, seen to put that cash injection in here. If that wasn't there, the agency would be delivering its business case in its normal way, but seeking the partnership of Rotorua Lakes and potentially yourselves. So we'd be saying, well, it's great for us to be investing this National Land Transport Funds on a state highway, and that's great, but how is it integrated with the rest of the network? We can get down it, but we can't, I can't get to it. Or if I ride my bike to the school, is there a bike rack for me or safe, secure parking? Now, with that Crown infrastructure money, it means that we have the funding, and we don't have to go through that requesting funds from the National Land Transport Fund. And part of that CIP, it was I believe it was a 55 million, and some of it is, well, there was 15 targeted at stormwater that the regional Rotorua Lakes are delivering to support development, and there was the remainder was targeted at local road treatments, so whether that's cycleways or traffic calming. So does that answer the question? So that's how the history has come about.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Thurston and then Councillor Thomas, and then I'm going to ask a final question.
Chairman, are we discussing this in more detail this afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just, is Simon going to be with us this afternoon, or?
No.
I just want a point of clarification. I think it's the 4th slide, PT improvements for what? And for those not familiar with Rotorua, this is a slide of a very large rest home complex. In fact, there are 2 side by side, which Phil Thomas will back me up on. Can you just clarify, obviously there's going to be a gate there for the residents to access the bus stop. Now, the blue line is a 3-metre shared path, is it not?
Correct.
And the green line is the
on-road cycleway.
On-road cycleway. So to a lay observer, I'm picking up that the bus stop is out in the middle of the road. Is it not? I'm just thinking of safety issues for the older folk.
So the bus would, in that particular slide, which is indicative, the bus would sit in the lane, and then you would get on and off it from the foot. You're right. You're not going to be stepping out into a cycle lane to get onto the bus, so the bus stop would come in. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Okay, okay.
So that's so to be fair.
Chocolates from Carol Gordon later today. So.
No, to be fair, that's really well picked up, because that is the point about having all of these stops where they integrate with cycleways and footpaths, and that there's a level of consistency, and it's basically a shared space in my view, so nobody's dominated, and so you're clearly not going to get off a bus stop and be run over by a cyclist. That is not the intent.
And as we all know, these shared cycleways, the cyclists get up to a pretty good speed going on them, as we all know, heading for their destination. So thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Look, just a question back on the shared pathway slide along Tenai Road, State Highway 30. we've got a couple of, if I don't know if we could just navigate back to that slide so I can point out the bits that I want to talk
this
about.
one?
Yeah, that one, yeah.
Okay.
Now you've got, actually there was, we went to the one that included right out to the airport actually, which I think was the next, yes, that one there. So you've actually got 2 crossings of the road there for the shared pathway, but where the pathway is going now up to Tarawera Road and past it up to Isles Ave, it's once again on the other side of the road. So you're going to end up with all these crossings backwards and forwards across the road for the shared pathway. I understand why it crosses over down by Coulter Road, but why is it dropping over at Isles Road to the other side of the road and then coming back over at the O'Potter shops, it looks like? It seems to me that you're just zigzagging backwards and forwards across the road, and between Isles Road and O'Potter, there's plenty of space on the other side of the road there. So I was just wondering what the thinking about that was.
So I can't give you specific detailed answers, but in a nutshell, it's an engineering and a constraint on space. And where they've decided to cross them over is at the mid-block crossings, so that you don't basically have to wait to get to an intersection and backtrack on yourself. So I know that there's a lot of thought behind this. I recognise the comment, and I'll make sure that's interrogated again before we close this out. The picking up of the people on between the Brent and the Wharenui is the schools are on that side as well. So it's looking at how that interacts. So although I can't give you specific detailed answers, I can assure you that it's been well thought through, and I can come back to you with those if you like. From an earlier design, the footpath was all on the southern side of the page, but of course it compromises how you get to the airport. So and the land on the southern side is there's green fields there and so on. So there's more of a desire to keep it in the road reserve.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bunnett. We're going to have to keep moving. I've got Councillor Hughes, but before that I had a question. Has there a cost-benefit ratio been done on this this $35 million project?
Yes.
And answer?
I'm going to say that it's favourable, and the reason I'm not going to give you the answer is because until I've had all the peer reviews done and all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. But I can assure it is well above 1, and the project is targeting the walking and the cycling and the PT and making the network equitable. And I think as the years go on, we'll see better economics around demonstrating the value that gives us in terms of health and the wider economic benefits, climate change and so on. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councillor Hughes, last question.
Yeah, hi. I'm just wondering if you're familiar with the Timaru study on mobility as a service at the moment and on-demand buses, because what I think there might be a similar size to Rotorua, and what they've done is they've transformed their whole service into on-demand, which means they have pop-up bus stops and they don't actually need to spend the money on infrastructure for a smaller town that's kind of set up in a way that's a little bit more spread out. What's your views on that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen a presentation on that. I think it's awesome. This is Tinai Road. It is a major link into the town. So what we're seeing is that this needs the infrastructure to support both local but those interregional buses and those larger journeys. The local roads, the way I see it, there's work here that would then enable those on-demand services. So if you've just you bought a property in that new development, how might you get into town? So there could be that local road service with your on-demand, and the state highway is focused more on those sort of inter-regional commuter journeys, and that's where we probably need to do the work. And I suspect Joe might have something to say, but your workshop later on today might pick up things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call it to a halt here because we're actually 20 minutes behind my schedule, and I hate being behind. But thank you very much for your presentations. And we're going, just to give you a heads up, we'll do the chair's report, which will be presented by Jessica Easton, and then we will break for a quarter of an hour for Monty. Sir.
Because we're all diligent members of this committee, we've all read it. I'm quite happy to move recommendation 1 because it's for information only.
Chairman.
Yeah. Councillor.
Happy to second taking the report as read. However, I'd like to comment on the Transport Community Panel. I would like to see the establishment of this panel move now with some haste. I think it would signal that we actually do value the input of interested members of our community. And also, I just want to raise what Councillor Nees just raised, which I think is the quote of the day, which is that we are in an incredibly and increasing crowded and complex space. And if anything is going to derail the TSP, it is going to be that we do not take the community with us on the journey that we're on. We're on a juggernaut of a journey. At the speed at which we're going is incredible. But the biggest risk, in my opinion, is that we do not take the community with us on the journey. So please, I urge you, Mr. Chairman, and staff to convene this panel with some urgency. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that, but we are going to have a presentation from staff. She's going to give us an update on the COVID situation as well. And can I just let you know that I've just been informed that a transport and urban planning manager has just been appointed by Penny Regional Council. He is James Llewellyn. He comes from the NZTA and has got a very good pedigree, and so we welcome his addition, which is due to start sometime in September, I believe. I'll just hand over to Jess.
Yes, thank you. We'll keep it brief, as it is information only. We will present a number of reports today together. So for those that don't know me, I'm Jessica Easton, Legal and Commercial Manager and oversee transport operations.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Jen Proctor and I'm the EPT Operations Team Lead.
Tēnā koutou katoa, I'm Ruth Feast, I'm the Team Leader of Urban and Transport Policy at Regional Council.
So on page 16 regarding Waka Kotahi funding, we're still waiting for information regarding any additional funding that may be provided for COVID-related costs for this financial year. Waka Kotahi has expressed concern that it won't be in a position to fund as it did for previous lockdowns if the regions continue to move up and down alert levels. So they're currently working through what funding might be available and what they will prioritise, whether that be PPE, workers, operators. So there's some big decisions that they're needing to make. And yes, all we've been told is we're in a bit of a holding pattern and to expect to be able to fund ourselves for now. We did receive confirmation from Waka Kotahi that our rate for the 2021 to 24 National Land Transport Program remains the same though, at 51%. While we're on the topic of COVID, I thought I'd just pass over to Jen to give a bit of an update on where we are at with the current climate. For the most part, the rules for public transport have remained the same as they did under our previous move through the alert levels, but for a couple of matters, one being face coverings and one being QR codes. So I'll hand over to Jen to give a little bit of update as to where we're at.
Thank you, Jess, and through you, Mr. Chair. So we're looking at maintaining the same arrangements throughout alert level 2 through until Sunday. From Monday, you would have seen that face coverings will become mandatory on all PT services and also our total mobility services. To help with this transition, Waka Kotahi are distributing 1 million face masks throughout New Zealand, and that's for the public transport operators and our total mobility operators as well. So we'll be receiving those over the weekend and ensuring we've got those available for Monday, providing we receive them in time. And that's just going to help with that transition. So the responsibility and onus will still be with the customers to provide their own face coverings. And we've been really careful with that messaging. It's not face mask, but it is a covering at this stage. Jess mentioned also the QR codes. So we are working with our operators currently. We must display QR codes on our buses effective Thursday, the 3rd of September. So we are working with them quite quickly to get those QR codes in place for passengers, so then they can, excuse me, use the app to track their movements.
Councillor Rees.
Thank you. 2 questions. With regard to the face coverings, if people don't have a mask, we're going to give them a mask, or are we going to refuse to let them on the buses if they haven't got a mask? And who's going to be responsible for policing that? Is it our staff? So that's one suite of questions. Then the other one around the QR codes and the B card. So will our B card data be available to Ministry of Health if they request it? So that's another question. And secondly, for those people that don't have technology and don't have a phone, are we expecting to have some sort of sign-on with a piece of paper and write your name and your phone number and etc., because that's common practice in a lot of retail businesses, where if you haven't got your phone, then you've got to write it down. And if we're going to do it that way, what's that going to mean for our timetables and the ability of getting people on and off the bus?
These are all very valid questions I think every regional council has put to central government in the last couple of days. The government's been really clear that the responsibility for face coverings is on the individual, but there was a little bit of a backlash around that and pressure it might put on drivers as we're transitioning into this mandatory state. So these masks are now being provided for a transition period, so they can be handed out. We're still grappling with what are people going to do with those masks, when they're just going to leave them on a bus, how we're going to dispose of them. So there's a few meetings today where those issues have been worked through with the operators, the unions, the councils and NZTA. And enforcement's a really big issue. Central government's been really clear that it's not on the drivers to enforce, they're not to enforce. But then the Prime Minister did come out and say no one's allowed on public transport without a face covering. So I'm not sure, we're really grappling with who's meant to stop them from getting on public transport. So those are some issues that are being discussed today and worked through. Drivers obviously have a lot of concern about the obligation that they feel to protect themselves and to protect others. So yeah, I think over the next few days we'll get some more clarity around those particular queries. And then you had a third point, which is left in my mind.
Perhaps just tag on there as well. We have also received communication from central government about those who won't be required to wear face masks, and it is still being confirmed, but at this point in time, it's anyone who has breathing difficulties or medical conditions. They won't be required to wear a face covering, and also, and yet to be confirmed, I believe, those who are school-age children, primary and intermediate, I believe, or it could be anyone under 10 years old. We are really firming all of those details at the moment.
The odds is the people that have got COVID are the ones that are likely to have breathing difficulties. But anyway, no, the other questions then were the ones around the B card data and a sign-on system and the impact on our efficiency of service.
Yeah, so we are in quite a good position with our B card now that we have RITs implemented, which is wonderful, and we have 92% of users, of bus users, using B cards, and of that 92% have registered those cards. So we can track a very, very large portion of our bus users. That's not the case for some other councils. So NZTA are working through that with the Ministry of Health at the moment to see if we can get an exemption from the QR codes. But with Minister Hipkins' announcement yesterday, it sounds like they're not going to allow any exemptions, I don't think. So the idea is that we will have both the B cards supported by the QR codes. My fear is that people who don't want to register B cards are probably the same people who don't want to register on a QR code app. And then we also have a class of people that don't want to use technology. And the consistent position across the country is that we weren't going to have written forms. We didn't do that last time. They didn't want us to, just because of the implications of having everyone touching the same pen and touching the same paper. We moved away from that as an option. So there will be a gap of people that potentially aren't going to be registered, but I think the government just wants to see a significant portion that can be traced.
Recognising that we're between yourselves, you're speaking and wanting tea, and we do have to catch up 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes in the next, before the lunch break, because we've got to be on time for our workshop. Councillor Rose, last question, I think.
All right, I'll make this brief then. So obviously the Minister announced and the Prime Minister announced a few things in regards to public transport. One is have basically a time frame for how long we're going to actually have to wear face masks for, and two is the QR system, and actually how are we going to support. Has staff got a plan in place to support those without that technology to use the QR system?
So possibly the second question, just with the QR codes. So yes, staff do have a plan for the QR code. So we've got our two largest operators who are organising those QR codes right now. And there will be a QR code on the back of each seat so they can do that. In response to your second question, with regard to those who don't have a phone who cannot use the QR codes, we do still have our 0800 number. So throughout COVID, we had an 0800 number that people could phone, and we have our call centre agents, and they can document their journey using that. There wasn't a great uptake using that particular facility, but it is definitely there, and it will remain there.
And then in terms of your first question, we expect that the requirement for mandatory face masks will be in place as long as alert level 2, 3 or 4 are in place. I expect if we go down to alert level 1, that will be lifted, but we don't know when we'll be moving out of alert level 2.
Would that include also level 1.5 as everyone's been talking about?
That's a good question. It may well do, yeah. We're still waiting on the formal information from NZTA to provide us with clarity around some of these issues. They know what's happening when the Prime Minister makes her announcements, and then it has to filter through. They have to navigate their way through it and then give us direction, so it does take a little bit of time.
Thank you, staff, for your presentation. It's fantastic to see the uptake on the B card, and that is our best method of tracking anyway. We've had the motion that we receive the report moved and seconded. All those in favour? No, it's already been done. And can I give Councillor Thompson an assurance that I will push for the introduction of that stakeholder forum again. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. We now break at 10:45. We have a quarter of an hour, 15 minutes. We'll start again properly at 11 o'clock. Well, welcome back, everybody. Can I ask, we move to 8.2, which is page 21 of your reports. Public Transport Strategic Framework and Activities Planning.
Good morning, councillors. I'd like to introduce Bron Healy, who is on our big screen, and Janine Joyce, who are going to be taking us through this paper today on page 21 of your agendas. which is all about introducing an aligned regional public transport strategic framework and looking at applying that sub-regionally. So I will hand over to Bron and Janine.
Thanks Namuda, and thank you Chair, and morning members of the committee. I think I'm the prime presenter today, so I'll box onto it, and I'll try and share my screen with you with the presentation. Okay, do we all have that up on your screens?
Just, you can take questions during the presentation or at the...
Are you happy to take questions through the presentation?
Yeah, I can do that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So within the room, just raise your hand and whistle at me. Here you go.
Okay, so yes, this paper is introducing a public transport strategic framework and activity planning approach. So it's really to introduce our thinking on this, our initial thinking on this, and then we're going to also demonstrate how we're applying it in a sub-regional context, and looking at the Western Bay of Plenty in particular as an example. Primarily because some of our timeframes in the Western Bay of Plenty with other initiatives going on are approaching quite quickly, so therefore we've kind of used it as an exemplar for how we will do the approach throughout the region. Just talking about the situation, and I think this has been touched on in previous items, and probably extending the analogy that we're in an increasingly complex transport planning space. At a regional level, we have multiple initiatives going on. They're operating at different spatial scales, both regional and sub-regional, and we think there's a need for integrative thinking, particularly in the public transport space where we have that clear line of sight between strategy, policy, and then future investment in the public transport system. So using another analogy, it's having a clear understanding of the why. Why are we providing public transport as we move into the what, or how we're doing it. So our response, or our proposed response, is what we're calling a public transport strategic framework. I think it's probably important to emphasise this is not a substantive initiative in its own right. It's really a way of drawing together the various threads of public transport related policy to help the Regional Council and its partners when they're making decisions about levels of public transport investment in long-term planning exercises, for example. We intend it to be a live document, a live process that will continue to develop and evolve, particularly because many of the initiatives that it reflects are themselves still under development. This slide here just shows the proposed structure. As I said, we have intending to have an overarching regional framework, which is sort of articulating your high-level regional policy, and then three more context-specific sub-regional activity plans informed by sub-regional network planning processes. Moving briefly through the regional framework. This is an initial version of it is appended to the report. It includes some high-level outcome statements or visions. One from the draft regional land transport plan that we're developing or in the process of developing, and a more public transport focused community outcome that is part of the Regional Council's long-term plan strategic framework. So that drills down a little bit more into what we want to see in our public transport system.
One question, Bron. Councillor Nees.
Thank you, Bron. And just going back to your slide, which showed the cascade, it didn't actually have the regional public transport plan in that cascade. So that's where our policies around public transport sit, and that's our statutory document. So where does that fit within this framework? Is it operational right down the very bottom, or should it be a guiding document also? That's what concerns me, is I think we've got so many different pieces of the puzzle now, it's quite difficult to see where the hierarchy sits.
That's a good question, Councillor Nees. Yes, I guess my thinking is that the regional public transport plan probably doesn't have that highest level of vision, but it does have policies, objectives, and then sets out service guidelines. So it kind of sits slightly under a very high level document like the Regional Land Transport Plan, but then it definitely fleshes out the operational policy relating to public transport. Obviously the Regional Land Transport Plan is a multimodal plan, whereas the Public Transport Plan has that more focus on a single mode.
So it's firmly part of this integrated framework.
Correct, and I think in the next few slides I'll probably elaborate a little bit more on that.
That's great. I just think we need to understand the relationships between, for example, the mode shift plan, the regional public transport plan, these like the Tauranga system transport plan. There's just so many that I think we need to understand the hierarchy, what drives what, and how they all fit together.
Correct, and I guess my hope for this initiative is that that's how we eventually manage to tease out those strands and show how they all fit together.
Mayor Weber?
Sorry, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We're all aware of the hierarchy between national policy statement, regional policy statements down to district plans. So the regional sits above the district. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, it's just
I think
do it. No, I know exactly the point you're making, and everything was subservient to the regional. So those Tauranga transport plans and that are subservient to the regional thing. That's how the normal hierarchy works.
Moving on, please.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'll rapidly move through this a bit quicker. Regional public transport objectives. As I said, we've got very high level ones in the Regional Land Transport Plan that are public transport relevant. And then we have more PT specific objectives in the Regional Public Transport Plan. We've also posited some draft public transport network principles. Really, this is these are derived from the Regional Public Transport Plan and best practice in the literature. And the idea here is to just have a simplified set of principles on a page that clearly communicates to the customer and our partners what we'd like to achieve with the network.
Sorry, can I just say something here?
Councillor Hughes.
Just looking at safe and accessible, you're talking about your customers, but I think we need to be explicit about the safety of the community as well, in terms of the safety of the people who are interacting with those bus services.
Point noted.
Chair.
Councillor Thompson.
A point of clarification, if I may, Bron, in terms of network hierarchy, is that intended to mean that we are going to be focusing on both direct, i.e. transit, rapid transit systems, and community connected systems?
Through the chair, yes. So I guess what the picture we're trying to convey is that all these services relate to each other, but they have different parameters or provide a different type of service. So it'll be a mix of high frequency, fast services on major corridors, but they need to connect also with more coverage services, whether those are conventional fixed route type services, or we're obviously keen to explore the potential of demand responsive services within that network.
Thank you. My second question is, given that the incredibly disruptive operating environment we have, particularly with technological advances, I'd like to see a principle which makes sure that we are strategically focused and that we are at all times having regard to the advances, the strategic advances that we could be taking opportunity for. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted that.
Could I just add to that too, in terms of the way that we look at the cost analysis, that we're analysing the cost benefits across those different services as well? Comparing is what I'm saying.
Yes, and I guess as we get into our more detailed network planning, that's certainly part of the equation around cost benefits and value for money.
Keep going, Rob.
Okay. Just touching on, we also have some key performance indicators, both at a regional level, and we also have some draft regional PT network classifications. So these are derived from the regional public transport plan again. What we're doing is looking to simplify them a little and also to update them better to reflect some key imperatives that are coming through in our planning. For example, in the Western Bay, the Urban Form and Transport Initiative, or UFD driver for high frequency services. So this classification system draws on systems operating elsewhere, for example, Auckland, which are moving into that more rapid transit type delivery for those high-end services.
Can I put a plea to have very meaningful KPIs and levels of service detail, because what we're seeing with our buses currently is that we have more buses in total than Hamilton, for instance, with a much bigger population. So the level of service is high. What we have to do is make sure that we have timeliness and reliability, and we'll only get that if we're using GPS data on buses and getting good timetabling, whatever, and this is where the B card can come in. But if we don't get that level of service right and our customer satisfaction up, which comes later in this meeting, the detail, we will fail to get people to convert as a mode shift. So that is a critical strategic point, in my view, to making sure, because we've done the hard yards of putting the actual buses on the routes. We've got more than enough buses. We just have to find ways to get people on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, good point. I guess it's that program of continuous improvement. How do we provide for better efficiencies in those services and align those with customer expectations going forward?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to compliment your comments, because Appendix 1 to me is a key document, and we're being asked today to endorse it in principle, subject to a whole lot more modelling work being done. And I don't want to hold up the meeting today and incur the wrath of Mayor Webber by doing so, but some of these KPIs, you know, need real consideration. For example, the one around the intensification, you know, some of these, we need to have good discussions around it. Today's not the day to have that, but I'm certainly only happy to endorse in principle, subject to us having the opportunity to have some more detailed discussion. And I do note, for example, that the vision statement for public transport makes no mention whatsoever of people. But I would like some further discussion at an appropriate time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Webber.
I'll give Councillor Thomas assurance you will not incur any wrath from me. In fact, you've given me incredible encouragement. Because I did ask, could we question on the way through, and Councillor Thomas has given me the opportunity by referring to page 64. I just wonder if it's time we considered year-end forecasts, because everybody has completed their annual plans now. We know what the capital and OPEX funding that is in place, and we know full well from those documents, unless I'm reading them wrong, we're highly unlikely of meeting many of those year-end forecasts because we haven't got the capital in place. You take a deep dive into technology. For those who don't know, I've been involved in this technology, putting a paperless transport facility in place in 1997. It's not new technology. But I just bring you back to some things. You mentioned why, Bron, and you mentioned another word, continuous improvement. I go back to page 24. A first iteration, with all due respect, this is the current iteration of what we've been saying since 2004 that I've been reading. And to me, the why I think we have to do is, why have we failed to meet our earlier targets? And what are we going to do in this particular regional land transport cycle to ensure we meet the targets we're setting up? Because if we're not, as I said at the Public Transport Committee, we're wasting our time. You know, we've been talking about what we're doing. And some of the instances, you talk about costings. It's not the cost of running the bus. When I had to put in facilities like this for tankers, we had to provide facilities for storing the tankers on our own land. Where in all of our documentation is the costings for where these buses are going to be parked? Because as Heidi says, parking on yellow lines in public spaces is not the way you run a bus system. But we allow it. It seems to be practiced. To me, this is the fundamental stuff. And if we're not going to face up to, you know, where are we servicing these buses? Where are the bus stops? You know, there's no capital in here for bus stops, but we know we need 400 of them. And we knew that 16 years ago. So what's stopping us from doing it? So I just wonder, you know, people ask me why I attend these meetings. I attend them because Chair Doug pleaded with me. But, you know, testing my patience. You know, we've got to start doing stuff. We know it's got to be done. But if it doesn't translate into our annual plan, and it didn't translate to this annual plan for some this time around, if it doesn't translate into the long-term plan, central government will tell us, go fly a kite. So, you know, I think we're on a limited time frame here. We either do stuff or we tell people, well, some of them may already know, we are incompetent, but we're trying to make ourselves look good.
Councillor Rose, then me again.
No Roth though.
Did you have a question, Councillor Rose, or was it just?
I'll let Mayor Powell go.
Thank you, Stacey. My patience has been tested in areas far greater than this, so this is a delight to be here. So thank you all. Look, I'm a bit frustrated by what we are doing at TCC, I have to say, and we are shy some 400 bus stops, and we have talked ad infinitum with a number of people that supply them, including Mark Wassong, who know that he's got what seems to be on the surface an extremely innovative and cost-effective solution with the printed bus shelters. I don't know if that's required or not, but I do wonder what we can do to advance these bus stops. You know, they're, as I understand, Heidi, correct me, 3,500 each. They're bus stops, bus shelters, 3,500 each, thereabouts. And we do need 400 of them. So, you know, we just need to get on and do this. And I think it goes to the structure of this whole entity. And I, for some time now, have been saying to members of this forum, and Andrew, you know me on this, that I'd love to see the teams get together under one roof, become one team, as opposed to it being regional running the buses, Tauranga City Council running the infrastructure and failing abysmally, to come together as one team, one structure, left and right hand knowing what each other's doing, hopefully working together. And I mean, this is not rocket science. Many cities, much smaller than us, have cracked it. So I think, you know, that whatever it's going to take, can we just please do it? You know, and I want it recorded that I didn't swear once.
And wild applause was heard around the
Yeah. Thank you. Moving on, Rob. I think those comments are very valid, and we do have to work together, like, collaboratively. We as a regional council, I can assure you, we do recognise your funding constraints, and we want to work with you on the infrastructure. We've made offers in the past. We want to progress that, and it might, you know, Councillor Thompson and I are both advocates for eventually to become a unitary. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but but that's the aspiration of some of us.
All support here, boss.
Before we ask Bron to continue, Mayor Webber.
The point I tried to make, I hope it's not lost, that at this time in the cycle of annual reporting, we should do year-end forecasting so that we know what corrective actions we have to do. So we don't wait till the year end to say we failed once again. If there's interventions we need to make very quickly, then year-end forecasting makes it really easy for early interventions.
Taking on board staff?
No, the budget line on page 64.
Oh, we're not there yet.
It's referred to as Appendix 1 in the document.
Okay, moving on, Ron. Time.
I'm conscious of time, Chair, so what I'll do in terms of those comments is probably short circuit and go through right to what's happening in the Western Bay of Plenty. We're probably all aware of the context around that in terms of the TSP and the UFT processes. I just wanted to touch on the sub-region specific objectives and KPIs that Councillor Thompson raised a bit earlier. So these are the ones that we're working with our partners on through the transport system plan process. What I've pulled up here on the screen is the public transport related key performance indicators, noting that these are in a draft form and they're still subject to further refinement and discussion, particularly once the modelling outputs are confirmed. So they do cover off on a number of aspects of our system around accessibility, the provision of bus priority infrastructure, mode share, passenger boardings and transport emissions. So there's some metrics related to those, some of those from our modelling, some are more quantitative measures, for example, how many bus lanes we're targeting to provide in the next 10-year and 30-year timeframes.
Mr Chair, comment, can we please have consistency in terms of emission targets? I still can't. I get befuddled in terms of the various documentation, in terms of what we're really aiming for. So if we could please look at that and have consistency across all of our plans, that would be great. Thank you.
Cap, before you, there's just a comment here on the chat from Mayor Turner. Isn't the Eastern Bay of Plenty meant to read Eastern Bay of Plenty Public Transport Network Work Review? Do you want to comment on that, Ron?
Sorry, in relation to what? We definitely have a proposed Eastern Bay of Plenty Public Transport Network Review process that we're hoping to start shortly.
Through you, Mr Chair.
Mayor Webber?
Are you meaning the diagram?
I'm just taking from the chat.
If it's the diagram, yes, it's meant to be the public transport network review program.
Oh, I see that, yeah. Yes. Okay. Everybody happy? Moving on. Oh, got a question?
Yes, just those KPIs that were just up there. I think we're talking sub-regions, so that's Tauranga and the Western Bay. And some of the documents that we've got are quite confusing because they're drawn from Tauranga data in the same document that we're dealing with Western Bay activity. And I just want to make sure that we are very clear about what we're saying in our KPIs. When we say urban area, are we talking Katikati as well? Or is this just the Tauranga urban area? And when we say the percentage of jobs that are accessible from all dwellings within 30 to 45-minute travel thresholds, are we talking about within Tauranga City or with the whole of the Western Bay of Plenty? Because that might be much harder to achieve if we're talking the whole of the Western Bay of Plenty. So I think we're a bit schizophrenic with the way we are putting these documents together. And I think we need to be really clear, is this a whole Western Bay picture? And if so, are the KPIs appropriate for the whole of the Western Bay, or should there be sub-KPIs for the Tauranga urban area and for Western Bay urban areas? Because if not, we're destined, we're setting ourselves up to fail.
I totally agree with you. Yes, I'll come to you next, Mayor Weber, and then Councillor Hughes. I totally agree with you, Councillor Nees. These KPIs, they have to be realistic and they have to be actually properly determined. They are how we hold to account our staff and at an operational level. We shouldn't be getting into how they do it, but we've got to make sure that we set a target that is achievable and realistic, but still a little bit aspirational. And the figures in there, I would like to see staff come back to us with a report on the robustness of what is in this screen that you've got up here now. Mayor Weber.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson must be an incredibly good fishing person because she knows how to bait.
Turn your mic on, please.
My mic is on with the green one, thanks.
Starting off calmly.
Yes.
Which is always
emissions, exceptional, but it's not a staff problem. It's people around this table that award contracts. If you want to reduce emissions, the easiest thing is to put all buses that are not Euro 5 accredited on the road, off the road. You'll have a more attempt in reducing emissions than you will in shifting people onto bikes. That's well known. The emissions of any vehicle over Euro 5 is quite high in the emissions. So if you look at awarding contracts, when you talk about free buses, and there's 14 coming in and out of Malokoroa every day during the school year, I doubt any of those are Euro 5 standard. So when we come to awarding our contracts, should we play our part or should we turn a blind eye to this wonderful target up here?
My memory, Mayor Weber, is that all of our contracted services and that, with the exclusion of school buses, that was a different contract, but they all had to be Euro 5, but staff might be able to, if they don't know the answer, could find that answer for us and get back just via email to let us know. But I believe that's my memory, is that was one of the requirements of the contract when it was let. But not school buses.
Why not?
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I've just got two things I want to bring up. One is, how are we representing the change in demographics of our communities over time with the increase in the number of elderly people and the increase in the cultural shift in young Māori living in our communities? So I think, yeah, those KPIs need to really address where we're moving in the future and how we record and how we look to represent those. The other thing I want to address is the well-beings. How are we really measuring the well-beings in terms of our KPIs? Because I want to give an example, and one is the free buses for school kids. And when we saw the measurements, it was all about congestion, and I was told, you know, we can't talk about access for people who are in big, large families and can't get anywhere by bus because this is about congestion. But really, there's how do we measure the actual the benefits for in the four well-beings? That's a question I would like to ask.
Through the chair, I guess I can only really comment that these KPIs are developed for a certain specific purpose, and that's a technical network planning exercise, and I guess holding ourselves to account around system performance. And as I've noted earlier, we are in a complex space, but I'd anticipate that wider community outcomes and measures are certainly part of each council's long-term plan processes. So there's kind of a cascade down, I guess, But these are quite technical level performance of individual mode type KPIs.
Can I respond to it?
Quickly, this presentation's running out of time.
Yeah, I just think it's very difficult for us to meet our long-term plan objectives if it isn't represented at every level, because that's where we'll be able to enable those objectives across all the different areas that we have, and PT is massive for that. So I think there needs to be some quite considered work around how we do represent it, even if it is a technical level. I don't sort of see why it shouldn't be in there.
Point noted. Thank you.
Keep moving.
I'll perhaps just go on to for the Western Bay of Plenty, just identify, I guess, what we see as a significant near-term opportunity for the network. Obviously, as part of this process, we're keen to build on a recent funding commitment from government, which has identified investment in the Cameron Road corridor to facilitate faster and more reliable public transport links along that corridor. So in terms of public transport service planning, to capitalise on this proposed investment, we would be looking to increase investment in a couple of future primary public transport routes, and these would form the spine of a network. So primarily Tauriko to the CBD, to the Mount, or to the Mount via the CBD, and then Hospital via the CBD to Pemma East. We see this as a great opportunity to line up our planning and investment to deliver on multiple government and community outcomes in the shorter term period. We do recognise that this will require some increased levels of investment in PT services and some route and service adjustments. So we're just really flagging that as sort of a key early move, I think, in terms of our future public transport planning for the sub-region.
Okay, Councillor Lee's a question. I've got Lee's, Weber, Rose. Keep it brief, please.
Thank you. A lot of this is theory, and I think it's been mentioned before. The bit that's really important is the customer, because you can have a theoretical PT network that's running around that's empty. So we had a lot of submissions after the PT blueprint, and we did some adjustments, but there was always a promise that we were going to complete a stage 3 review. And I'm very concerned to see later on the agenda that we've got a note in our report that that review's been completed. Now, I do not believe that we've done that stage 3 review, and I have to ask how this fits in with the stage 3 review that everybody around this table was expecting to see. And I think we were told that because of COVID, we're not going to be able to do pre-consultation around the annual plan, which was going to feed into the stage 3 review, that it was going to have to be kept over and done as part of the long-term plan, but there's a deafening silence around the stage 3 review, and now I see it's completed. And I have to ask how that fits in, and that's what the customer wants and needs, fits in with what these are future theoretical new routes, because there's no point in adding more and more routes if we're not listening to our customer and we're not delivering what they want.
So what you're asking for is a staff response to the stage 3 review. Whose position in staff to give us a response?
So through the chair, I'll start, and then perhaps staff can add to that. So in terms of the stage 3 review, obviously COVID did occur, and we also wanted to ensure that the outcomes of UFTI also fed into looking at the next steps. So in terms of UFTI, the stage 3 review, this work here, they're all feeding into long-term plan in terms of future considerations and next steps.
But the stage 3 review was going to be listening to our customer and finding out what they want. And we're still not having those conversations. And you heard Councillor Thompson asking when we were going to get our stakeholder group up and running, which is still only going to be a selected group of people able to give us feedback. So I'm just really worried that we are getting overtaken by public transport theory and not listening to what the people want.
Can I just give a comment there that RITS will give us data that will tell us where people are travelling and why. Basically, at the moment that's raw data coming through, so we haven't got the feedback for that. But once we get that, and it will take time, and COVID has been a distraction, then I think we need a stage 4 if they want to. I don't care what you call it, but once we've got good data to base good decision making, then we can go to the public and talk to our community with staff having stronger knowledge, so that it's not the squeaky wheel, but it's actual strong, but still listen. So I think there is a place. We are restrained with COVID.
But Andrew, the issue is the B card only gives us data on the users. It doesn't give us data on people that aren't using devices. And I just get really frustrated.
Through the chair, could I perhaps just comment that I think we imminently have a planned a customer insight survey where we're going out to survey both users and non-users about their experience of the public transport system, and asking them questions around, particularly the non-users, what would help them make a decision to use the public transport system.
Okay, we do need to keep this moving, but I did have Mia Webber, Rose, Thurston, and then Hughes. And so if you're going to speak, keep it brief, because we're out of time on this topic, but it is really valid, so I don't want to close it down.
With all due respect, I think we're going to do this properly rather than quickly.
No, that's what
the first bullet point up there concerns me greatly. It should read $45 million commitment from the government towards the first stage of redeveloping Cameron Road from the CBD to the Tauranga Hospital. It's a near-term opportunity. When you put Tauranga West in there, you're creating a public expectation you're not going to deliver on for at least 10 years. So it's not a near-term opportunity. It's only near-term opportunity out to the Tauranga Hospital. You know, Barks Corner is not on the long-term plan for anybody for 10 years. So until you fix that, you're not going to go out to Tauranga West with an improved system. And the $45 million does not take you out to Tauranga West.
So yes, that was Rose.
Yeah. Look, I understand that you've got these plans for surveys and all of that, but really it's a matter of how are we going to get out to the people and actually discuss these issues to them. Because the thing is, as I sit here and I look at Tauriko to the CBD to the Mount, I'd love an explanation. How come over the past, the system's been different for a year, how come the 52X, which goes from the crossing to the CBD, is empty? And I can say that because I used to have to catch it to work every single day to get to and from the barbershop. So how come all of a sudden we're starting to look at things like the crossing to the CBD to the Mount, when really we should be focusing on how are we actually getting people onto our buses? Because the thing is I'm sitting here and I'm seeing all of these cool theoretical ideas, but I don't see a single piece about the community. I don't see a single piece about non-users, and it's actually really disappointing. I agree, what we're doing here theoretically is good. It's great that we've got a plan in place, but we are leaving one of the key people in this entire decision, or in this entire space, out of it, and that's the people. And I just think that we need to actually sit down and have a proper conversation, whether it's outside of this forum or not, and actually get to the nuts and bolts of why have we not gone to the people and actually talked to them about the issues at hand. And the stage 3 review, like, if it hasn't been completed, then why is it being said that it's completed? Like, that's what's confused me. I understand we have AFTI, I understand we have the TSP, but if we said we're going to do a proper review, then we should be doing a proper review.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Can I say, if you go to page 57, you'll find the mystery shopper, and it gives us a lot of information as to why our bus service, because as I said before, within the data there, we've got more buses on the road than Hamilton, but we've, you know, to get people to use them, we've got to have reliability and punctuality. And that's probably as much, you know, so you can talk to anybody, but unless we get them on the buses, we've got the routes, we've got everything, but we actually have to find a way to get them to use it. And that's our challenge, or the challenge for staff in a practical sense, to get it going. Councillor Thurston.
Yeah, I just want to totally agree with everything that Councillor Nee said. Mayor Temby feels he's weathered a few big storms in recent times, but I can assure you, Your Worship, the biggest storm we weathered was the rollout of the blueprint, and it all but ended a number of political careers around this table, I can assure you. But as part of that, we gave an unqualified assurance to the community that they would have full participation in the scope and the review of the stage 3 review. So I'm totally confused if they say it's been tabled and presented and signed off, because I do believe it needs some serious clarification as to the status of that review, because of the assurance that we gave to the community.
Okay, so I have last Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree around the table. And I want to give an example of if you go to the community and ask them rather than relying on the data. I went to our transport team yesterday and said, there's a problem with the bus lane on Links Ave, and he said, oh, but the data says that Links Ave is one of the highest used bus areas in town. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because I walk myself 10 minutes to get to Links Ave, because that's the only bus, and all the people from Mount College walk to Links Ave 10 minutes. They don't go from outside their school, because if they went from outside their school, they would have to do a loop right around Bayfair and come right down through Links Ave and then go into town. So instead, they walk to Links Ave 10 minutes to take the bus, so they don't have to do a loop and come right back through that area, and then they go into town. So if as much data as we want to get out of a failed bus system right now, the network is set up to fail. So you can't rely on your data when it's providing information that actually isn't correct. We need to go to the community and say, how would you like, what's working and what's not for you? And we need to go community by community and unpack it, and really work together with them and get to the bottom of how do you want to get to town. And if we take our time on that, if say we went to Welcome Bay and we said to them, do you bike, where do you go? Do you bike? What's happening with the bus routes now? Because we've done a lot on the bus routes, and for some people it's working and for some it's not. So let's go back and look at this and really unpack it.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to comment, because I completely agree with Councillor Hughes. In the workshop paper this afternoon at paragraph 10.2.1, it talks about building community support, and it says as follows: community buy-in and acceptance of mode shift initiatives, especially when planned for their local neighbourhoods, is absolutely essential to ensuring a multimodal system is actually achieved. So I think time for us to really stop and stare here. Customers, non-customers, communities, as you say, Heidi, community by community. I could talk about Brookfield. I won't.
I think we both could.
Right, Brian. I think you've taken all that on board.
Yep. Just a couple of slides just to comment that it's probably not all about the Western Bay of Plenty sub-region, and just to note that we will be making use of the public transport network planning reviews to undertake exercises in both Rotorua and the Eastern Bay. Obviously the Rotorua process is well underway and the subject of a workshop later. And we also have the Eastern Bay of Plenty network review planning process that we are planning to commence shortly. Just an outline of some next steps. Region-wide, we plan to continue developing the framework to help guide that public transport service delivery planning, particularly when councillors are making decisions in long-term plans. Continue to work on both the Rotorua and the Eastern Bay network reviews, and I think sort of an initial action that's come out of some of our feedback is to commence work on a consistent route naming and branding system. So that's to better support the principles of the network being simple and legible to our customers. In terms of the Western Bay in particular, we're keen to continue to work with our partners in the sub-region to plan, design, fund and deliver public transport. I'd note through the TSP process, we're continuing to develop and test public transport level of service scenarios, and that's to support those long-term plan conversations and decisions about future investment. And we will support the development of an indicative integrated transport investment program as an input into the next regional land transport plan. We'd like to continue developing a public transport activity plan that includes all the relevant information that will support future decision making, taking on board today's comments, and we are keen to develop a single activity plan with our partners if our partners around the table wish that to happen.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, and I'm reiterating the point earlier on, the total cost of the infrastructure to enable an efficient and effective public transport system to work is included in those costs. It'll be an eye-watering number, which will cause some angst to some people. But you know, if we're not going to include all of those costs, then we're just creating public expectation. We're going to fail for another 3 years. You know, we've got to do it once and do it right.
Good point, yes. So that's the idea of an integrated plan which supports investment in public transport services and infrastructure. Obviously, each council needs to make decisions in terms of their long-term plans for their various contributions to that.
So it's a supplementary comment. When you see buses parked where we're supposed to be people parking their boat trailers down at Sulphur Point, is that what we're aiming for? I don't believe it's what we should be doing. It's not even average practice.
Yeah, I probably agree with you, Mayor Weber. It's probably not best practice, and certainly at terminal facilities and layover facilities need to be integrated into our thinking.
Is that the end of your presentation, Brian?
Yeah, just noting the recommendations in the report.
Yeah. So page 22 of our report has 6 recommendations. Councillor Rose has moved them. Is there a seconder? Happy to second by Mayor Powell. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on those resolutions? The recommendations, actually.
Chairman, did you want to add another one about the status of the review? To get it on the
I'm open to you if you want to add one.
I'm happy to add a second one.
Say.
That staff clarify with urgency the current status of the stage 3 review.
Does the mover and seconder? Yes. The mover and seconder are happy with that. Any further discussion?
Well,
Mayor Weber?
I was also wanting, Plus, everything we've discussed here today, I don't want that lost.
No.
So long as it's certainly going to be incorporated in going forward, and we've got some documentation, because I've seen this written since 2004.
Yeah. Councillor Nees?
Thank you. Just number 5, where we're talking about endorsing in principle the KPIs. I do not believe that we understand them fully yet. So I see that they're subject to further testing and confirmation through modelling, but also I think there needs to be something else there along the lines of what Councillor Thompson mentioned. Have you got suggested words that you want to pop in there?
I just want to make sure that after that modelling's done, it comes back for us to have a look at, because certainly I've got issues.
So the words endorse in principle, you don't, you...
Endorse in principle, blah, 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 and to be referred back to this committee.
Did we get that? And Mayor Weber, you can...
I'd like a further amendment though. We received...
Well, wait a minute, so we're doing that, so you're going to do it, is this a...
Well, no, instead of endorse, I mean, we received the Western Bay of Plenty transport and subject to further testing. We just received it. We're not endorsing it.
Yeah.
I think it's
I agree.
a hell of a lot of work ahead.
Does the mover and seconder happy with that?
Yeah.
So
instead of the word endorse, received, and just receive, and instead of endorse in principle, receives the report. And bring it back to us.
Yep.
Okay, so we've now got 7 resolutions. We don't need to relitigate them. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Well done. So, let's see where we're up to. That was going, so we've lost another 20 minutes, people. Improve the network, I think we're up to, aren't we? Improving our network. So, Ruth, who's you're going to lead it out?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll keep this fairly short. There's one decision to be made, and that's around extending the trials for the Tauranga Schools Free Fare and the Regional Tertiary Free Fares to the end of 2021, so December 2021. That's essentially the decision we're asking you for, based on that the current 2 trials are to the end of this school year, December 2020. Extending those trials is really necessary because of the effect of COVID on bus data, patronage data, and also the potential for a bit of a toing and froing or a risk that the trials would end, but decisions made under the LTP wouldn't kick in until July next year, so there might be some sort of toing and froing as a risk. So we're recommending that those trials be extended and funded through public transport targeted rates reserves.
So moved, Chairman.
It's been moved by Councillor Thurston,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Rose. Discussion, so can we have clarity around NZTA funding for those?
We don't we didn't have funding for the trial. So if we do continue with this as a permanent fixture within our network, then we do have to make a business case to NZTA to seek funding. And there's a few different things that they'll need to see, including evidence of relief from congestion, as well as some other factors. So yes, that is something we'll have to do.
So this recommendation is to continue the trial, which will not be NZTA funded, but then if we want to put it into permanence, we will have to
make a business case.
Thank you. And the tertiary one, is that, do we have to extend the tertiary one? Do we have an undertaking from our partners, i.e. the university and the polytechnic, that they will continue to fund it for another year?
Do you want to answer that, That's a conversation that we do need to have with our tertiary partners. They have been incredibly supportive of the service, and it's been a really difficult time for them at the moment because they've closed for quite a significant period of time during COVID, and they've lost a lot of student numbers. So if we do want to have a full year of seeing how that service operates, we will need to really run another trial year with them, but we will need to talk about that just because.
Can I therefore recommend the mover and the seconder split those so that we have the two separate resolutions, and the second one with the tertiary, that it's subject to participation by our partners.
Can we do so, Chair?
So the mover was. You were happy for that to be in three parts?
And in saying that, Chairman, you're a stickler for data and correct detail, so I believe, it behoves all of us to support this so we can get some real good data that we can hang our hat on. So, and I'm sure the universities and the tertiaries will buy into it.
So I've got speakers. Who have I got first? Anybody guesses? I've got Mayor Webber, Councillor Nees. Anybody else? Councillor Hughes, Webber. Mayor Webber.
I just make the point I only like speedy processes when they suit my ends, but moving the recommendation that we receive report, I make the point on 3.2, which is about Super Gold Service. We have had to the Regional Council submissions in the past about including the Matakana Ferry in the Gold Card discounts, as per Auckland Ferries does, and we're looking at ferries coming in, whether that's something we should be considering. I know we've had representation from the Matakana Ferry that they should be eligible for the use of the gold card on that. But it's silent in the document. I think a third bullet point on page 38 for the Matakana Ferry as per Auckland Ferry.
Do we have a comment from staff on that?
Thank you, through you, Chair. We can certainly have a look into that and report back to.
Okay, so can that come back to our next meeting? So that's an item to look at that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're moving to Councillor Nees.
Thank you. For the tertiary trial, you note that they will be funded from public transport targeted rates reserves. I just wanted to check that we will maintain the proportionality of those, because they were, those rates reserves are gathered from the ratepayers in a particular area. So Western Bay, there's some targeted rates reserves, there's Tauranga City targeted rates reserve. I wouldn't like all of the money to be taken from, say, Tauranga City and used to subsidise this. It's really important that we maintain that proportionality, because that bucket may be needed for other enhancements for that part of the network.
That's noted, and I've got a nod from staff that is the assumption. So we'll take that as the assumption that it will be proportional. Then I move to Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just I think that the extension of the trial opens an opportunity for us to really maybe look at what those other outcomes, how we could measure those other outcomes. One and Mayor Webber alluded to the ferries. So that's culturally, it serves a lot of our cultural well-being to be able to give that access out to Matakana. But likewise, families are often larger, Māori families are often larger. We're getting many more Māori kids in the next 20 to 30 years. So it would be really a good opportunity to see, well, what are the cultural benefits then attached to the kids free for school? And same with, along those lines, the social outcomes for solo parents, solo mothers, and how do we measure that, and how do we represent that in our business cases and into the presentations to this committee.
Thank you. Taken on board by staff. Comments? Councillor Rose.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to endorse your comments as well as other comments in the around the table as well. I just wanted to asked a question in regards to the regional tertiary fare-free trial. How long is it gonna, how long do you think it would take to get an answer from these two, or from the Polytech and the university? That's my first question. And the second question is in regards to the Pies Pa routes 51 and 57. Just an update on those and how patronage is actually going, and whether both those routes are doing the job that they need to be doing.
I can answer your first question around the Polytech. We have a very close working relationship with both those institutes. So once we have a decision today, I'll go away and have that conversation with them straight away. They were incredibly supportive of us throughout the COVID period, even though we weren't able to run those services, they did continue to support them. So I think I'm confident the approach will be a supportive one. But yeah, that'll be a pretty quick process. In terms of Pies Pa, I'm not sure, do we have any involvement on top of our heads?
Sorry, I don't think we've got anything further, certainly from what has been reported in today's report. We don't have anything further, and anything would be anecdotal, just with customers who are very appreciative of the service. But we can certainly get some more information if that's what you're seeking.
Yes, and I do look forward to our darling RIT service providing some more data in regards to how that service has gone.
Thank you. That's the conclusion of number.
Just through the chair, just to further add to that response in relation to data and information, in relation to metrics about how these free trials are going. Obviously this is a key direction and decision for you to make, and we have seen a huge increase in patronage. Comparing February to February last year, we saw a 75% increase. The first 2 weeks of March, obviously prior to COVID, that was a 100% increase. So we certainly are seeing those numbers, and as part of Arataki, the next report, we'll be able to talk further about other data and information and statistics that we have.
Mr. Chairman.
I've got Councillor Thurston and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to 4.2, the Kaingaroa Village, as we know, Murupara and the Kaingaroa Village would be two of the most marginalised communities in the country, and this initiative came out of an approach to an annual plan discussion a couple of years ago, and it was a plea from the principal and the DPs at Murupara Area School to try and get these kids out of that area and get them into tertiary education in Rotorua. Clearly it's getting off to a slow start, and I think that's about as good as I can say. But I would welcome an opportunity, I know Councillor Winters and I know you would too, Phil, in Rotorua, to go out there and meet with the principal of the Murupara Area School and just see if we can get this ramped up somewhat. So if the staff could pick up on that, I think it would be great.
All right. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to endorse Councillor Hughes's comments around the wellbeings assessment. In this particular report, we have 5 lines attributed to the wellbeings assessment. Look, I know it's a work in progress, but I do actually think that we need to put some concerted effort into the criteria by which the wellbeings are going to be assessed, rather than I know it's a work in progress, but I would like to see that pursued. Thank you.
Staff take that on board, come back to us for the next meeting with an update on that, with positive outcomes. There'll be no further discussion. That we have three recommendations now instead of 2. We've separated, I won't relitigate them. Our mover was Councillor Thurston and Mayor Tao, or was it Rose? Councillor Rose. All those in favour, please aye. Against carried. Public Transport Performance Monitoring Report.
Yeah, we can continue on leaving the table, but Jen and I will continue on with the Arataki Morning Report. A number of things have been canvassed through the discussions today, but I did want to touch on some of the patronage figures. So prior to lockdown, regional bus patronage saw an 8.2% increase on the same period as last year, which was also an increase on the year prior. So we were tracking quite well. In Tauranga, February alone, there was a 40% increase in patronage. That was quite significant. Obviously, COVID hit, and overall for regional patronage, there was an 8.9% decrease on the same period last year, and that was driven by the 58% decrease in patronage during COVID. I think, Jim, did you want to comment on customer experience through that?
So customer experience, there are some changes that are coming through. So we do have a customer contact centre in Lower Hutt, and we are moving that operation here, so it will be locally here within Oakland Regional Council offices, and we'll have a call centre agent team here set up, and they'll operate between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and have a further operation of Tauranga City Council supporting after hours calls as well. So that we're likely to see an increase in more positive customer experience, certainly when they're making contact with council.
So when we look at the customer data and the complaints against the patronage, it is quite low. We're only getting around 10 complaints per 10,000 boardings. You will see on page, what page is that?
It's item 8.4, attachment 1.
Page 56, sorry. The customer complaints data. You'll see there's a spike in February, March, April, but that spike's there because patronage was very low during that period, so it does skew the data. That was during that COVID period. In terms of the nature of those complaints, we will, because we've had that change of system, we haven't been able to report in here the nature of the complaints, but we've since pulled that together. And most of the complaints related to late race buses or bus not stopping.
Rude, unhelpful driver, inconsiderate or dangerous driving, which are generally consistent with what we see month on month with the complaints that do come through.
And so we'll continue to work with the operators around those complaints. On our school services, as we mentioned before, we've had such strong support from the community for our school services. The numbers have been really astounding. In February, we saw an increase, and these are the stats that Namuta just mentioned before. In February, we saw an increase of 75% for our school students. And then in the first 2 weeks of March, there was an increase of 100% on last year. Obviously then during COVID, the services ceased operating, but subsequent to levels 4 and 3, we saw a really fast bounce back on our services, and in a manner that wasn't seen around the country. So the June numbers for our school service were over 60,000 students were using the service, which was a 30% increase on June last year, which really is incredible given we're in a COVID environment. So there is enormous support for that service, and it's been really well used. And we have had to put extra buses on to support those numbers as well.
Can we just take a break and we'll ask Mayor Webber, then Councillor Neves, Councillor Thompson. They've got 3 questions.
I think there might be a bit of a hint here. If we separate out patronage of school buses, and I include Matakana Island in there, the Kaingaroa subject, what we found in the dairy industry, patronage when we ran a milk tanker from a sheep farm to a wool processing place actually never worked. And what you find with school buses, because we know where the schools are and we know where the origins are, we're getting really good uptake. And it comes back to, if you look at where we're successful, because we run the service to meet the needs of those who want it. And where we're failing, where we're not actually asking the people. So there's a real big hint in there. You look at Matakana Island and what's happening at Kaingaroa, and coming back to your point, Heidi, is the well-beings. The kids that are attending schools now that historically most probably stayed at home because there was that's not even measured. And that's an output for the nation, or an outcome for the nation, we should be really proud of. And that's where I think you've got to separate our school bus from the others and work out why we can get one right and the other one not quite so right.
Very good point. Councillor Nees.
Thank you. I've just got a question about project 10 under the infrastructure, investigate suitable locations.
Page?
Page 66. It's investigate suitable locations for the establishment of park and ride facilities, and that's been completed. I'd like to know where these which park and ride locations have been identified as necessary, because this is, I think this is one of the biggest shortcomings of our network at the moment, particularly for people like me that live in a rural area. I've got nowhere to park near a bus stop. I cannot walk to a bus stop. Yes, but there must be. There absolutely needs.
Councillor Nees, the next item is TCC reporting to us on infrastructure. I think that's where.
So they will tell us.
Well, if they don't, you can ask, and they're coming on Zoom in a moment, straight after this.
Okay, then my second question is, why are we not progressing the extension of the Amakara bus service to the Matakana Barrage?
Thank you, Councillor Nees. You say you're raising something.
Which number is that? Sorry, Councillor Nees.
Oh, that's number 18. Oh, 16. No, sorry, 18. Yes. It's on hold. No. Yes.
So yeah, this document is jointly filled out between the council. As Chairman has said, TCC will have to comment on 10 as that is filled out by them, and we'll have to get an answer to you on why this is on hold. The Omokoroa bus service is on hold. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, firstly, a bouquet or a bouquet. I understand that the Beehive, the temporary customer services operation, was extremely well patronised, and my whole hope going forward is that wherever we have the main CBD location for PT, that there would be a dedicated customer services hub there, because I do understand it was really successful. Congratulations to the staff and the ambassadors, my colleague here, and Councillor Hughes and the chairman, so well done. Just an issue for me around reliability, 84 misses in a month. Really? The reliability of buses turning up when they said they were going to turn up, and we had 84 misses per month. We have to do better, surely.
Yeah, sorry, which page are you on?
I'm on the actual reliability, page 53 of 71. Anyway, doesn't
matter. On page 53, yeah.
Sorry, have I got the wrong page?
No, you're right.
Simply saying, yeah, we're going to have to presumably have a bit of a look at that. Thank you.
So I've still got Councillor Hughes and Councillor Rose. Can I just compliment our initiative to put bike racks on buses? I think this is a good news story. To see that in June we've got 790 bikes on buses. This is one way to help mode shift, to encourage multi-use. And I think recognising that COVID's in between there, this is a really good story. And we should pat ourselves on the back for actually initiating bike racks on buses. I think the city really lends itself to that. And thank you, staff, for getting it done. I remember asking for bike racks back in the early 2000s, and it's really paying off. 790 in a month is a great achievement.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I agree there. I've put my bike on a couple of times, especially when my batteries ran out. it's a very heavy bike to ride home if you don't have a battery going, so thank you for that. I agree. I just wanted to, quick question about the, one thing, I did ask about our staff about the speed limit of buses on local roads, and they said that there was a voluntary speed limit going along Links Ave, and I'm wondering how do they record that, and is there something in the bus that sets off an alarm that says when they're going over that speed limit, or is it just up to the driver awareness?
Yeah, it's up to driver awareness and for that information to be fed through from the operator.
I can tell you now it's not happening, so I'm just wondering if there are other, I know the Christchurch system, they do have in their buses, they have a little alarm that goes off and that feeds straight back into the operator when that happens, so I don't know whether that's a possibility, something like that, but could we look into what that might look like?
Yes, certainly, I'm happy to have a conversation with the operator around that.
Thanks.
Councillor Rose.
So first off, I want to ask about the app, because I know having a chat with a few people whilst either on buses or whilst people are reading our timetables, and sometimes those timetables can be completely and utterly wrong. They are going, what can I use to get a proper real-time app, real-time figure for when my bus is getting here, and I'll always say the app, but there have been a few times where the app's been wrong. So can staff tell me how we're going in regards to improving the app and improving the quality of time and also the reliability of the app as well?
Yeah, so the app, the Transit app is a free app that's used globally. It's not owned by us. So the data that's contained within that app is reliant on the information that our systems within our buses are feeding it. And prior to RITS, we didn't have a really reliable data source feeding that app. Now that we've got RITS, we've got a far more superior data source, but we need to implement that and start working our way through all the raw data and how we're going to feed that into Transit app. So that's one of our primary focuses at the moment, is improving the data that's within the app now with the resources that we have from RITS.
Thank you. Councillor Neves, you're getting between us and lunch.
Oh, that's all right. This follows on very well from Councillor Rose's question is, could we have a report, an indicator on the reliability of the data of the information provided through the Transit app, because that's the biggest complaint that I receive from people, is that they're watching it and they're expecting a bus in 2 minutes and suddenly it drops off the planet and it never arrives. So we need to make sure that we are getting, that is reliable, because we are saying, go there and you'll find out where the buses are and when they're going to arrive. And if we're not going to have the real-time systems on each bus stop, we're going to have to make sure that that app is really reliable.
Yeah.
So can we have reports within this report which says percentage reliability of Transit app data or something like that, so that we can monitor how it's getting better. And so therefore that will feed straight into our reliability measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff have noted that. Mayor Webber.
I think it's, I hate to hark back, but this is root cause analysis stuff. If you buy a modern vehicle, particularly a heavy vehicle, it will tell you where it is and what speed it's doing real time. You don't need to go through RITS. Why we sent it down to Otago, that technology's been available. When I talked about the funding and costings before, that's stuff we know. So if the bus is just coming around Brookfield, and sorry it's missed your bus stop, Councillor Thompson, because there isn't one, you actually know where it is. Now that technology is available. We should be costing that into the background of the work we're doing to say, that's what we want. Why haven't we got it, and what is the cost to get there? This is not new technology.
No, E-Road puts out a heavy transport system that does exactly that for heavy transport, and I believe the buses are actually use E-Road as well. Staff take that on board? Well done. That is the end of the questions. Are you ready to move on?
The only other thing I think we were going to update on was routes.
Yep.
And perhaps total mobility, so I'll hand over to Jen for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's picking up on some points that have already been raised this morning, so thank you everybody. Certainly Councillor Thompson highlighting the success of the Beehive. That was open for 15 days and it was only closed due to the rest of New Zealand going into alert level 2, otherwise it would have remained open for a few more days. High level of positive customer engagement throughout, and we distributed probably the highest level of timetables. So we had a lot of customer contact through there. The success of the campaign, again, pick up on the ambassadors. We had them at the various interchanges within the main centres, and that proved highly successful. Also visiting retirement villages, assisting them one-on-one basis, that was fantastic. We've had 10,800 customer contacts or occurrences of customer contact with customers for B card from 22nd of June through to current. And that's your phone, your email, your website and everything. So that's been highly successful again. Anecdotally, the drivers are reporting faster boardings, which is brilliant. And that's going to help make our services a lot more reliable as well. And a really important one is the on-bus cash top-ups has decreased dramatically. So 50% of those who are paying via an on-bus top-up and now doing that online, although we're doing it with our customer service centres. And that means less cash handling for our drivers as well, so and less risk posed. So a really good positive there. Happy to answer any questions on RATs and just really quick.
Rose.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say well done, team. Very good initiative, and I know for a fact that a lot of customers were very, very happy with how we as a council stayed visible and stayed engaged throughout these times. I just wanted to ask, because I never actually got round to it, did we have to, obviously we had people, ambassadors, I'm not saying the word, I refuse to say it, in Bayfair, Greerton and the CBD. Did we also have a couple in Papamoa as well? We did?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay, because, yeah, that was, yes, we didn't have any in Brookfield. Sorry, Paula. But no, again, well done, team. A very big success and a great way to move forward on such a great project. So well done.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, and total mobility?
Total mobility, probably just further to the report, the only other consideration, I guess, is that we're working with those particular customers through COVID. They are a more vulnerable group of passengers, so we are working quite closely with the operators. They have got RideWise, so we've got good contact tracing there. Of course, they're maintaining all of the cleaning of the vehicles, but it's just being aware of this particular group of people and just providing that assurance to them that it is a safe form of transport. We did notice a decrease in the use of that, but some of the use throughout the COVID period was also for flu jabs, so there may have been just a bit of increase in cost, but certainly well received through that period.
Yeah, recognising Councillor Thurston's interest in this, have we done any surveying of actual total mobility users and how to find out, you know, the benefits, downside of using the service, and also how many are actually using the buses? Are our buses providing an alternative for what are normally considered total mobility people?
I don't believe that we've conducted a survey. Yes, no, I'm not aware.
Just something to think about going forward, please. Because it would be good to get some data on that, because we did not note dropping patronage, but if it's dropping patronage there, to put them on, because the bus service is an alternative for them, then that's a positive. Councillor Neese.
Just a point of clarification, during the heat of COVID, total mobility was also free, wasn't it? Is it still free?
No, it's not. So that funding arrangement ended with the PT funding arrangement.
Mayor Webber.
I'd suggest if you want to do a survey of total mobility, go to Socially. That's what they're set up for. They know all those organisations like the Stroke Foundation, MS Foundation, all of these people, and say, what's the feedback you're getting? So it's a service that they would provide for you if you wanted to use it.
Thank you. Sorry, can I just clarify, Councillor Neese? I did say it ended with the funding arrangement with the rest of PT. It was actually at the end of June. So the rest of PT, of course, the funding arrangements aligned more with the RITS Go Live.
Thank you. Right, we have a recommendation that we receive the report. I'll move it. Do I have a second? Second of Mayor Webber. Any discussion? No. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carry. Thank you very much, staff. Really appreciate it. Now, between us and lunch comes Tauranga City are going to zoom in, and this is actually a really important session on the public transport infrastructure. So do we have them available?
Yes, we are available. We're here.
We can't see you. Now we do. Oh. Welcome, Claire. Would you like to introduce your team, and the floor is yours.
So yes, today you have me, Claire, who you all know, I think. I have with me Brendan Bisley, who is our new Director of Transport. Just going to share our screen. Is this working for you guys?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Sorry. So today we're just going to update on a few key infrastructure projects, and obviously we'll be available to take questions at the end. So the first one will be the Cameron Road Multimodal project, which recently achieved their CIP funding. There'll also be a brief update on the Arataki bus facility and the wider suite of bus stop upgrades and shelters. Hand over to Brendan to talk through Cameron Road.
Thanks, Claire. So Cameron Road is a project that's recently received CIP funding from the Crown. So it extends effectively from Harrington Street through to the hospital in stage 1, and stage 2 goes from the hospital through to Barks Corner. So in terms of its strategic direction...
Can you put your screen onto slideshow? Because you're actually...
It's on the one slide.
Yeah, but it brings it up as the whole. You can't? Okay, sorry, if you can't.
Okay. Sorry, at our end it is on slideshow, so is it not showing as that at your end?
No, well, don't, just keep going, it's okay.
Okay. So look, in terms of Cameron Road, it does fit in within the GPS for transport national policy statement around urban development. It's part of the Te Papa business case and spatial plan, and also the Tauriko urbanisation, and it starts to link a number of our different programs together. I'm going to go through this fairly quick because I'm conscious that you guys have got a busy afternoon. So in terms of the objectives of this project, it's around improving safety, it's around getting more inclusive access, improved quality of the urban environment, it's around supporting mode shift, including health and environmental benefits, and it supports residential intensification and urban renewal on the Te Papa Peninsula. So when we did the original study, we looked at trying to balance between safety, multimodal and placemaking, and we looked at I think there was 7 cross sections. We shortlisted that down to 2, option 2 and option 8, and we have run with option 8. So option 8 is effectively 2 traffic lanes, a bus lane each side, and a 2-way cycleway on one side of the road. So the bus lanes originally, there was debate about whether they were clearways, busways, etc. So they will go in as part-time PT lanes, and we have an agreement with the Crown that sometime between year 5 and 10 they will switch to full-time bus lanes, and that will be driven by demand. In terms of outside of the cycleway and the bus lanes, we're also doing intersection improvements. We're looking at better crossing facilities for pedestrians, and we're looking to get a better sense of place in the Te Papa Peninsula. So in terms of timeframes, it's got an accelerated delivery program. So we are shovels in the ground in May next year and completion by September 2023. So skates are on to get it delivered, but we are confident that we can do that. We'll move on to Arataki, and I'll pass back to Claire.
So the Arataki bus facility was reported to TCC's Urban Forward Transport Committee in July. We are basing still on 2 shortlisted sites, those being some land within the Bayfair precinct and some within this Arataki Park, currently the St John's site. We are progressing with a concept design and costing for those 2 sites, which is just enough for us to be able to undertake a wider engagement. We are planning to, understanding that there has been some backlash in this community and that the engagement model hasn't really worked. We are looking at a new engagement model that looks to engage with a core group of people on a more programme basis, and that will include both TCC, Regional Council and NZTA in those conversations. And we will also be looking for B-card data to help inform some of the decisions that will be going forward around that.
So the last bit that we just wanted to cover off is in terms of bus stop upgrades and shelters. So we have budget this year for approximately 30 shelters, so we are well on track to get those in. The shelters have been ordered, the sites have been defined, and we hope to have those in ideally this side of Christmas. Heading forward, we are looking to use the B-card patronage data to be able to assess future sites. At the moment, the sites are based on requests for them, but it would be good to understand if we've got a limited number of sites per year, where do we sort of impact the most users? So we originally consulted on 40 priority shelter locations in December 19, and we do have some objections to those sites. So again, we need to hold some hearings, but we need that B-card data to be able to do that and justify why a shelter is required at that site. In relation to the real-time information, that is continuing its rollout. That was all we had to cover. We're happy to take questions.
I've got Councillor Thompson, Councillor Nees, and Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. A few issues. The first is 30 out of how many?
Out of 400.
400, thank you. Relying on B-card data, in my view, isn't going to be sufficient, because some of the problem you've actually got is that people aren't using the buses because there are no shelters, and therefore people with disability, people who struggle to stand in the wind and rain, etc., simply won't be using. So I would suggest a little bit wider than just looking at B-card patronage would be good. And Claire, while I have you in this unguarded moment, I am going to ask you, where are we at with the Brookfield interchange investigation? Thank you.
So for Brookfield, that is planned for 2021 for further investigation. It was identified through the network design process that came post-blueprint. And as I understand it, the interchanges that were required as a result of that, the network's been tweaked and they're no longer required in the same way. So that project as a whole will be reviewed through the TSP process and the network planning that's happening within that.
can you just clarify that for me? I didn't quite get it. Is that 2021 for what?
Just for further investigation and design.
So give us we want to get a bit more specific as to where we get, when are we likely to see the actual shovel?
Well, that's largely dependent on what happens through the next stage of reviewing the TSP and what the requirements for that actual facility are going to be.
But in the TSP presentation, it said not within the next 3 years and possibly within the next 10 years.
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
Because it says on page 66 of the Arataki report, it is number 8 under infrastructure, investigate a new public transport interchange facility in Brookfield in 2022, and that's currently on hold. So
yeah, so that would be the 2021-22 year, and that's when the investigation is planned for, with construction to come after that.
So I guess the question, it's been asked before, so when can we actually expect a shovel in the ground is the main question. That's what people want to know, is when can we expect a shovel in the ground on this topic?
It will depend on the requirements of the project and the requirements of land purchase and those kind of things. I'm not sure we've got a capital project in the system that will come through the TSP.
Mayor Weber.
Given these park and rides or bus interchanges have been on the books since about 2004, what is further consultation going to deliver to us other than what we said a long time ago is still valid?
Sorry, can I clarify that question? Was that further consultation in relation to Arataki or to another project?
To the whole damn lot, because they've all been on the books since 2004. It's not just, it's all of them.
So for bus shelters, we have to consult under the LGA, and for the wider capital programme, we need to consult with the community and have them on board with those projects.
Sorry, a supplementary. We have consulted. We've consulted about every 3 years since 2004. So what's the need for further consultation? This is why I'm getting really confused, but I am getting old.
Could I ask my question? I've got 2 issues. One is the real-time rollout. You say that it's continuing. Can you tell me how many bus stops have got real-time systems on them and what the priority is for rollout? So how many stops currently have real-time systems in them, and what's the project delivery expected for those?
I can't answer off the top of my head how many there are out in the network as it stands at the moment. I can bring that answer back to you. The priority at the moment is with those larger and more well patronised stops, so at sort of centres. So there's been a rollout of them in Drayton, for example, at the city centre and at those larger facilities around town, and that will continue as we go forward in the programme.
It would be really great to see, we expect to have X in the next year, and that it will be in these areas, and then Y in the following year, so that we can see a full system picture of that real-time data. My other question is with regard to your park and rides, and there's an action 10 in the report which says that the project of evaluating location for park and rides is complete. So what I want to know is where are these park and rides going to be, and when are they going to be delivered?
Yes, so there was a short-term park and ride project undertaken, which identified land parcels that might be viable to do park and ride within Tauranga City. That project has been reported to TCC, and I think we touched on it in the last update to the PTC. And those sites are now being considered through the transport system plan through the TSP for delivery through that suite of projects that will come through.
So how many are there and where are they going to be? And if there aren't in your town or city, can we at least look at getting them in Western Bay? Can I just give you an example? The people of rural Pies Pa cannot use the bus. It goes as far as Aquinas and there is nowhere there for them to park their cars if they want to hop on the bus. The nearest place is the crossing, which has got a 2-hour parking limit. So many of us are just prevented from using the bus because we cannot drive the car and hop on the bus, except I see in some urban roads in the crossing now, you're starting to get cars lining suburban roads because that's the only place that they can get on the bus. So you've got a whole line of cars lining a suburban road because there's a bus stop there, and I'm sure the residents aren't that happy about having their cars filled up with, their roads filled up with buses. So, you know, there is a real urgent need for park and rides, and we're not getting any visibility around where they're going to be and when they're going to be delivered.
We can provide that report to you separately. There was certainly consideration of sites in that area around Pies Pa and Tauranga Crossing, and it'll be for the TSP to decide when they are delivered, but there were certainly sites within that area.
Can we ask that that report be circulated to the members of the PT committee? We only meet quarterly, and it's these things take too long if they're not. And can we please, following on from Councillor Nees, have a response circulated with regard to the real-time systems as to numbers and timing, so that we are fully informed. And I pass on to, did we get an agreement on that, Claire?
Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you. Councillor Thurston.
Chairman, on the 14th of September, we have this combined big love-in with TCC councillors to discuss joint transport urban governance future direction. Now, I'm picking up that there's a raft of items now starting to be collected for an agenda for that, and I see we've devoted 3 hours. We should be devoting about 3 days in my book for it, but is someone collating an agenda, or is there an agenda being put together for things to, because that's going to be an incredible valuable time. It's taken a hell of a lot of time to put together.
A very short conversation needed.
Can you put your speaker on so we can?
Well, in my opinion, there's a very short conversation that needs, can we do this better? Can we deliver urban planning and transport planning and delivery better?
How can we help?
And how do we do that?
Mayor Weaver?
Sorry, I don't want to diminish the power of this committee, but the regional land transport plan has to be completed by the 30th of June next year. Maybe you might get 6 weeks leeway, but we've been doing this for so long, that shouldn't be a timetable that we can miss. Which comes up with a 10-year long-term plan and a 30-year asset management plan. We have to do it by then. We should know now the implications of that, because we have to go out to our ratepayers with some consultation documentation. So I suspect, Councillor Thurston, the day is imminent.
Totally agree, Your Worship.
I saw an eyebrow raised by the mayor over here, and I know from my National Party contacts that a raised eyebrow is very important.
We didn't want
to
shoot the messenger,
No, we're not shooting the messenger.
Look, I'm just really sort of absorbing all this. I think I worry about a lot of things when I hear that this meeting has gone on for so long, for years, not this meeting, this forum. Brendan and Claire, I know that and I'm just going to talk about one thing because I think it's better to focus on one than talk about the plethora of challenges here. When in the budget, Heidi reminded me quite rightly that we had originally an idea to do 10 bus shelters this year, and due to Heidi's very valuable persistence, we upped that to 30. If my maths is correct, we're still lacking 370 at the end of that.
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
Because I said to the staff at that time, sorry, how many can we do? And they said 20. And I said, well, let's do 30 then. And then we hear that these 30 are going to be done by Christmas. So, you know, that it's not a lack of political will here in our team. I just have to add that. We really all were ready to say, let's do this. But we're just not getting it back from staff to say, well, yeah, let's give us the funding. We'd like to give the funding to make this happen, but it just doesn't seem
Well, that's a good point. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know what it costs to install a bus stop, but if I understand, if my maths is correct, it's about $3,500 per removable bus stop, and I'm happy to stand corrected on that. We need 400 of them. So in round figures, you know, 3 4s are 12. That's you know, $1.3 million. Is that right?
They're around 10,000 each.
They're what?
They're around 10,000 each.
Oh, okay. Well, we were told 3.5, so that's interesting. Well, anyway, okay. So I just think we've got to find a way to up the ante somehow. I know this has got budget implications for TCC specifically, but I just think, you know, I don't know what it takes to install one, but I can't imagine why it takes a year to do 30. Brendan, and again, happy to be challenged on this entirely, but I just think with 400, we've got to find a way of delivering the infrastructure that TCC is responsible for as part of this forum.
But through you, Chair, to His Worship, the comment that's been made in this forum for as long as I've been around here is the biggest issue for TCC with regards bus shelters is getting adjacent landowner approval to put them there, and that has been their biggest challenge. So with all the will in the world from politicians and yourself, Your Worship, the pushback apparently has come from the landowners of Tauranga with regards not having one in front of my property.
All right, so that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, and you most of in this room probably will. Are there, you know, what I'm hearing here is we're stopping the erection of bus shelters so people, and to Heidi's point, mothers and children and elderly people standing in the rain or in the searing sun in the summer. Is there anything available to us by way of legislation that can, you know, push that through? Because I think we're getting to a point now where we've got to say we need bus shelters, and I appreciate we need to take the community's interests at heart, but you know, I think that there is a tail wagging a dog here, just if I may be so bold.
And Mayor Webber, if I could comment, we have offered, the Regional Council has offered assistance with funding infrastructure, and you know, if you put that through to us, I'm sure that we will be very keen to help. So yeah, there just seems to be barriers thrown up that are unnecessary, and we must be able to do it better.
Well, perhaps we can take the barriers offline, Chair, if you're happy to do that, and understand how we can solve the problem.
That can be discussed on the 14th of September.
Yes, it can. Mayor Webber.
No, with all due respect, can we get a report by the time of this meeting as to what is the because my understanding, there is no, if you look, there's parallel projects in there. Rotorua, Wakatani, Western Bay, Tauranga City. The others have actually done it. And I come back to this consultation. We have consulted. But if NIMBYism is the problem, we're never going to achieve anything. And I think that's where we have to make some hard decisions. The people tell us, you know, we have a lady in Te Puke wants a outside Carter house, a bus shelter. We put it in within 6 weeks. There is no legislative problem here.
Okay, well, that's good to know, Gary. Thank you for that. And it's also $4 million, if just working off what Brendan was telling us.
But NZTA fund on bus shelters?
Yes.
What's their far rate? Is it 60%, 50%?
51%.
Well, then it's $2 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and a bit of legislation. So I think I would really like to see that we together move this forward with some expediency, because it seems to me that it's been talked about for years, ad infinitum, exactly. So I think it would be great if we could just do this. And I'm going to be in more shit than Flash Gordon, and now I've just sworn, so.
Okay, no, I think everybody's frustrated about the time it's taken. Have we lost our presenters? Have they? We're concerned when you turn your cameras off. Is there any, I think you've got the tone of this meeting. We really do want to see progress in this area, and very soon. And you've got the tone. The regional council is open to helping with this. This is something that we see as a priority here. Is there any further discussion before we receive your report, or any last comments you want to make, Claire and Brendan? You've come back to us, thank you.
We have heard loudly and clearly the intent, so we will take that back in-house. And we have started some high-level conversations around funding assistance with the regional council.
Okay, because we really do want to have this, but we can't, it is key to getting our bus service reliable and activated. If we want to get mode shift, this is a must do, not a want to do. It's a must do. That's my view anyway. It looks like I've got support around the room. Can we have someone to receive the report? Moved by Councillor Rowe, second by everybody. My information. All those in favour, please say aye. Now, we are now at 10 to 1, and that is the end of this meeting before we go to a workshop. I'm still going to give us 27 minutes for lunch, which gets us to start at 20 past 1. So this meeting is hereby closed, and with notice please to priority 1, we're zooming in, I think, on a really interesting presentation on hydrogen.